No, the clicker.
They should.
Stand by.
He gets it going on his computer
Okay.
and he can't use. There should be a folder on your desktop where you can put everything in. That's the folder.
It's my fault because I tried to put the other thumb drive in, and when I did that, it messed everything up. Because all those things are on the thing.
Hello, how are you?
Rick, how are you this
Good, Frank, how are you?
Good.
I think so.
Hey, guys.
Sorry.
Thumb drive in.
I'm reviewing my invocation.
No problem.
Now you just put evening, not morning at all.
Wow.
Patrick, how you doing?
What is this? Good to see you. I was able to duck out like 2. It's like, it's either 2 or a track meet. And I said, I'm just gonna do 2.
I talked about doing that, and sometime I don't even know what happened, but it didn't happen.
Oh, it's called work and life.
I'll panic. I'll be doing that every.
Like it's real.
Good.
The one that panics.
Been there. You've been there. I'm doing it the second time now. Kids, marriage. Sometimes part of me tells me times like, I think I could be living. I was when I first got divorced. I was living with 9 kids.
Does that work?
Watching the sunrise over the lake. Carpets that are there. I was there for a year and a half and I broke it to move in more. But I sometimes you ever I go, I can't. I
Please,
wonder.
don't even say.
'Cause I would-
Yeah, that's putting my brain in a place it doesn't need to go.
But I wouldn't get to spend, a week and a half every summer in scorching hot Birmingham.
There you go. But you wouldn't have a wonderful life to go home to.
Absolutely. I'd be going home to that thing alone, and I tell you what, there would be wine bottles, and bourbon bottles.
Absolute mess. A fun mess, but a mess nonetheless.
Why?
He's a troublemaker tonight.
Gerald, this is not me.
All is well. All is well.
That's right.
Jeremy, you have a presentation ready?
One more second. One other thing I needed on here.
Oh, that's the idea.
Glad I wasn't the latest one. Is Laura not here yet?
I'm gonna start soon. Is she coming? I mean, have you heard from her otherwise?
She told me she may be a little bit late.
Okay, well when Frank gets back, I'll get started. I know, 5's hard, right?
What's that?
5 o'clock can be tricky.
Yeah.
Yeah.
It can. But the traffic was better getting back north, so there's that.
Very true.
It'll just complicate it. There's be more stuff up here. Nope, that won't work.
Love, man, you get prepared.
Smart.
Smart.
You want a mango?
Oh, I'll take that. You don't want it?
Oh, I already have 3.
Oh man. Did you eat dinner yet?
I got it at 4:15.
Oh, I saw an email. I was like, is that for, like, I didn't know if that was just for staff.
Alright, staff, are you guys ready?
Yeah, Merlene's gonna.
So when are we, if we didn't come at 4:15?
Council, you guys ready to get started?
Yeah.
If you have a break between now and the regular meeting.
It's a big effort.
Okay,
Yes.
I'm gonna go ahead and call the meeting to order. It's 5 o'clock. It is July 13th, 2023. And this is a workshop for a presentation on our property and health insurance. So Marlene, the floor is yours. Oh, I'm sorry.
No, you're good.
And Lori's here now too, Vice Mayor. So come on in and we'll do roll call.
Okay, Mayor Young,
Here.
Vice Mayor Brandon,
Here.
Councilmember Deanna,
Here.
Councilmember Painter,
Here.
Councilmember Suntory.
Here.
Good evening, Mayor, Council. Merlene Reed, I'm not sure the protocols with workshops anymore, but I want to introduce that first of all, Rodney and Rami from the Hearing Group, our insurance brokers, and I'm not just saying this, they are really phenomenal, outstanding. I don't know what I would do without them. We thought as the numbers started coming in for property and casualty and, well, not our numbers, just hearing generally what was going on out there in the market, we thought it very important, especially as we have newer persons on the council, that we did a little presentation because we only get a few minutes at the council meeting itself to address these issues. And we thought it important that we give you the state of what's happening right now. And I'm going to turn it over to them. I know we don't have a whole lot of time because you will have a lot of questions. So I believe the first one is the employee benefits. So Rami will take that away.
Yes, good evening. Rami Mitchell, Senior Benefits and Risk Management Consultant at the Gehring Group. Some of you may have been familiar with my face. I've been here several times, as well as my counterpart, Rodney. We're going to kick it off tonight with a brief presentation on the employee benefits market. Thankfully, we have some better news on that than we do on the other lines, so I will try to keep it brief, but of course, we will have time available for questions at the end. So again, this is just kind of a little bit of an overview as to what the current benefits program is here with the village. So you do provide a comprehensive employee benefits package. It includes the insurance lines that you see listed there. These are all considered fully insured insurance lines, so you purchase these and pay premium, and then regardless of your utilization, the carrier either retains a surplus or eats the deficit. So you've got medical, dental, vision, basic life insurance, which is paid for by the village, voluntary life and accidental death, voluntary long-term disability, and the ever more popular employee assistance program, especially with some of the issues that people are facing outside of these walls. So we're really going to touch a lot on the medical insurance, right? That's your biggest budget item in terms of the employee benefits package. So I wanted to provide you a little bit of an overview of how your plan works. So traditionally, the village has had less than 100 employees subscribed on the plan. And so what that does is it puts you in kind of a category to where we don't necessarily get to see your utilization on its own. Your claims are blended with a pool, and that's irregardless of your insurance carrier. If you were somewhere closer to about 500 employees, which is somewhere around usually 1,000 member lives, including dependents, that would actually allow the village's own utilization to be solely used in renewal calculations if you remained fully insured. Most groups in that segment actually do self-insure because it's more beneficial to them. Right now, the village has insurance through the Florida Municipal Insurance Trust. They utilize the United Healthcare Network Claims Administration. That's their third-party administrator for their program. It is a government pool, so it is unique in that manner. It does only underwrite coverage for those in the municipal market or other government sector market, and it is here in Florida. With regards to FMIT, because you are less than 100, you are in their small group market. In the standard market, you would be in a large group pool. The standard market small group pooling point is about 50 employee lives. And then if you are larger, if you are greater than 100 lives, you would be in a larger group pool, and we would be able to actually receive some of your utilization data. But because of the nature of the minimal lives on the plan, and the potential for people to be able to identify who has what conditions, we are not able to collect that information. The state of Florida does provide for a provision whereby once a year you can request your loss ratio, which basically is a calculation that compares your claims utilization, so hospital visits, doctor visits, lab work, etc., in comparison to the premiums that you've paid. I will share with you that we did receive that number, just so you are aware as we go into this conversation. Over the last 12 months, which is typically what they look at to underwrite your program, the Village's loss insurance is almost 99%. So you've almost paid out 100% of premium for claims alone. And that doesn't account for administrative fees that obviously the carrier has to pay for them to verify eligibility, process claims, contract with their network, their doctors, etc. So typically under PPACA, the Affordable Care Act, whatever other acronym you want to throw at that, the threshold is 85%. That is their minimum loss ratio allowed. So 99% is fairly high. And what that generally does is, in addition to medical trend, which is basically inflation for the cost of services, it would be assessed to you in addition to whatever the trend is. So we'll talk about that on the next couple of slides, or as I get towards the end, because I do have a number to give to you today. And like I said, it is more favorable than I think we expected, and it's certainly a different number than we'll be talking about once the property and casualty insurance portion comes to you. So just to give you a little bit of an idea with regards to municipal entities or other government sector entities, we're very different from the private market. Generally speaking, they offer packages that are comparable to yours, so they're very comprehensive. The only difference, I think, is that some entities also offer employer-paid short-term disability and long-term disability, whereby the Village doesn't offer short-term disability. That's an option to you through an Allstate Aflac policy, and then the long-term disability is voluntary, so employees can choose to participate in that program and pay premium for that coverage. But the reason that these packages are so comprehensive is it really does bolster your recruitment efforts, and it does help with retention, especially with the, what did they call that? It's like the great, whatever that term was, right? The great resignation, right? The great resignation, right? A lot of people left their jobs for higher paying jobs, right? Or ones that they could do working from home. Obviously, in a municipal environment, most of your employees are here on site. And I know that there's been an uptick in pay and class studies. Everyone's really looking at where that bottom line needs to be for employee salaries, especially with the environment that we're facing in terms of inflation, the cost of pricing, home pricing, and insurance here in Florida in particular. So municipal entities generally do offer quite a comprehensive benefit package. Their benefit designs do vary, but generally speaking, they offer richer benefits, meaning that the costs out of pocket to those that participate in the program are less than you would see in like a private market. Most private market employers offer high deductible health plans. They don't provide funding to offset that cost. So public sector plans generally have lower deductibles, lower copays, lower out-of-pocket maximums, again, as a benefit or an attraction tool for those that would be looking to join your entity as an employee. Cost sharing also does vary within the municipal market. However, we did survey many municipal clients of ours here in Palm Beach County, and I just kind of provided for you some averages here below just to show you how they subsidize coverage for their employees. And again, this is medical insurance premiums. So the majority of them subsidize employee-only cost at 100%, so no charge to the employee. You can see that it was 5 out of the 9 surveyed, and that average ended up being 95.6 between all 9 that were surveyed. So again, not only are they offering richer benefits, but they're also subsidizing that coverage a little bit more heavily because, again, the pay versus what they're paying in premium has to be a cost-benefit election for that person if they're looking to remain employed or to gain employment with you. Employee plus spouse coverage or plus one, sometimes they have different tiers. That average came in at about 61.3%. Those that have an employee plus child tier, 60.9%. And then those that have family coverage, subsidize that at about 65.6%. So just to give you an idea. The Village does subsidize the dependent tiers, so all of those employee plus spouse down at about 75%. So that's kind of your history. Now looking ahead to what to expect. The health insurance market trend, and I kind of referenced that before, that's basically the inflationary cost of services. A lot of that has to do with the cost of contracting with medical providers and other things that are baked into the plan. So these costs have continued to rise at a rate that is significantly higher than inflation. So you'll see this chart here provided by the Kaiser Family Foundation, which does a lot of great research with regards to benefits packages, basically shows you what that trajectory looks like. So if we look at the term 1999 to 2019, those costs increased about 283% over the period. And then you can see over the last 5 years for which they had data, 2017 to 2022, it was about a 20% increase in terms of the cost of services over that 5-year period. The chart kind of shows you, and it's interesting to me, the differentiation, because I would have thought it would have been a little bit different between smaller firms and larger firms, but essentially this chart here shows you the annual average premiums for family coverage. And you can see that they're almost tied here down in the 2022 time period with regards to what that cost of coverage is, regardless of the size of the entity. So what influences this trend? You can kind of see some of the things here listed on the slide to my left. I don't know how it shows to you, but these are some of the factors, right? Having lower deductibles and copays, that leveraging, as the cost of services rise, sometimes those plan designs don't. So it kind of looks like that alligator mouth where you started out pretty close, but as you get further and further in time and you don't adjust those copays, obviously the cost that the plan absorbs gets higher. You'll see lots of things. Labor shortages is in particular a factor, especially when they look at provider contracting. COVID really did a number on us with regards to, nurses, a lot of burnout with doctors, some general practices closing their doors because they weren't having enough, foot traffic, and lots of other things, government mandates, malpractice premiums, which obviously continue to rise. We are a pretty litigious society these days. So a lot of these are the factors that have traditionally influenced trend, and then COVID actually added an additional complexity. So COVID in and of itself really drove up hospital and ER utilization, as well as lab work and things like that. So people that were being tested for COVID as they had to return to employment with a negative test, or they couldn't, fly to another country, or they couldn't travel. So that really did kind of add to some of the costs that we're seeing, and now they're trickling down, right? That first year, people weren't really sure. 2020 renewals were like, we're just going to go status quo because we don't know where this is going. 2021 was a pretty rough year, but they thought things were going to stabilize. 2022 renewals, those were the worst that I've seen. I've been with Gehring Group for 11 years, and I've always worked on the benefits side. It was one of the worst years that we've ever seen, and unfortunately it's continuing to happen. And COVID, not only did it kind of impact us in terms of utilization, but right now what we're seeing is that folks who did not receive care or did not go in for like their annual wellness checks or cancer screenings, we're seeing a lot of cancers presenting themselves in stages that are further advanced than we normally would have. And that adds to the bottom line because those claims are very expensive. With regards to the village, I can share that there was some high-class claims data that was provided to us. There were about 2 claimants who had claims over $100,000 in paid claims, which is quite significant. Thankfully, knock on wood, none of those were cancer-related. But that's really what we're facing right now, and that's kind of why we're seeing a lot of what we're seeing. PwC actually just released some trend factor numbers this past week, and what they're projecting for plans that renew in 2024, starting in January, that trend number is about 7%. So the cost of, medical services are increasing about 7% as of the January 1st renewals. 2022, I believe it was 6%. So as you can see, it just continues to kind of tick up as we're still in this environment here and trying to navigate. So the good news is that we did receive your renewal, and actually it's not a verbal indication anymore. We actually do have it in paper now. It was a 6.3% that we were able to negotiate, down from a 7.8%. And like I said, that's pretty much in the range of inflation between that 6 and 7% since you guys are renewing here in October, the tail end of 2022. We did also, outside of that, and before that was released to us, perform a market bid via request for proposal. And unfortunately, the medical insurance market here in Florida is a little bit further restricted with Humana having gotten out of the group medical insurance business. But we did only receive one offer. Every other carrier declined to quote, and a lot of times it's because we can't share claims data, so they're really not sure what they're buying into. Florida Blue did provide a quote. They were the carrier for the Village prior to last year's renewal in 2022. And that quote was 41% increase. So unfortunately, it was uncompetitive. It did match sort of the benefit design that's in place now, but again, just not anywhere near where FMIT was able to come in with their renewal. The dental insurance renewal initially came in at 9%, and it was negotiated down to 5%. Again, that loss ratio was pretty high as well. It was close to 90%. And then the vision renewal was initially released at 5%, and we were able to negotiate it down to 0. The employee assistance program, we have not yet received that, so that renewal is to be determined, but it's a pretty insignificant premium cost. It's a charge per head, and it's really, I think it's $2.70 something now, so it's a smaller budget line item. And I think that's the end of my quick presentation. I can open it up to questions for me if you have them, but I know you'll probably want to save a lot of time for Rodney. So
Thank you.
let me know if you have
Council,
any.
questions, comments?
You mentioned the loss ratio of 99%. That was for the Village specifically, right?
That is correct.
So when you look at the small group universe that they're looking at, what was the loss ratio for that entire group? Do you know?
For the pool, FMIT doesn't generally release that to us for the pool overall, but I would gander that it's somewhere between 70 and 90%, just given where they usually try to land with setting their funding rates.
And then I know we've had this conversation in the past in terms of the portion of the cost that we pay for the significant others, wives or family or husbands and family members. You said our coverage, we're covering about 75% of the cost. You said when you did your survey, it was more like 60 to 61%.
It's a little less.
And we've talked about, and of course we've got contracts obviously in place, so that comes into play here too.
Correct.
If we were to not necessarily go to 60, but let's say we split the difference, said, okay, we need to have our employees shoulder a little bit more. Do you have any idea, let's say if we went to something along the lines of, let's say 67%, do you have any idea how that might impact the premiums?
I'd have to do some quick math in my head, but so right now,
I mean, for the current year, it's not a,
right, and it's not, and you are right. It is a part of, I believe, at least a couple of your CBAs, which is why it's structured that way. But if I added like another 7, because that would be about 7% we're looking at to add to the employee. So that'd be an extra 15 grand to them a year, which would take down yours. So instead of like, right now you're facing about $100,000 increases in terms of the Village's budget line item. So it would probably reduce it, to around 85,000, which percentage-wise out of the total package.
is de minimis.
Yeah, I'll just give you a quick comparison as to, because right now you're looking at 6.3, so it'd be about 72% less. So what is that? So you'd be looking at about a 4.6% renewal. So it would adjust it down slightly. But again, it is a part of your CBAs, and I think in terms of, recruitment, you guys are somewhat of a smaller, entity here, especially in Palm Beach County. I think that would, maybe be a little bit of a point for people to potentially look elsewhere. But that's, that's neither here nor there. That's not me. That's Merlene.
Yeah. Well, when you did that assessment, you said you looked at 9 other municipal entities.
9 surveys.
Is there do you have a broader base?
Oh,
sampling?
absolutely.
So if you look at the broader base sampling, would it still be at that 60, 61, 62%, or would it be higher? Or?
That's a good question. I know from probably about 5 years ago, I did look at a very large segment, and I believe that the average then was about 80% subsidy to dependent insurance. So
And
yeah.
that's where it was in the private sector at one point too, and I know they've been trying to shift it.
Oh, I think they're closer to like 60 now,
Yeah,
yeah.
now,
So
yeah.
to see that to come from the municipal entity, I would have to get back to you on a number for that. I mean, we definitely do have that data available. Obviously, we serviced over 100 clients on the employee benefits side. I could probably give you a more accurate number.
Okay. I mean, it's not material to this year's discussion, but
Yeah.
as we look down the road a year or two out,
Right,
having
for
some of that
long-term
additional,
planning.
background information would be helpful.
Yeah, sure.
But
Definitely
by the way,
provide that to Merlene.
excellent presentation, by the
Yeah,
way.
sure.
Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Any other questions or comments?
I don't have questions, but I'm good,
All
thank you.
right, thank you for your
Thank
work on
you
this
very-
and for the presentation.
That we compete mainly with Jupiter and the Gardens and so on, ones closer to us. And a few years ago, maybe 3 years old, and I'm kind of surprised at the data because we were looking at 90% sharing as opposed to 60-something.
And that's true. So
Yeah,
we don't serve Jupiter or Palm Beach Gardens, so they were excluded from the equation. I know Gardens definitely heavily subsidizes.
We
Yeah.
do, So I have their data, I was trying to find it quickly, to show you.
Well,
because I have
they're
2
direct,
years ago.
direct competitors, so obviously
Oh,
that's
yeah,
Yeah.
so they
very
were showing,
relevant, yeah.
Yeah, but this was like, so I think I surveyed town of Jupiter Island, which is similar in size to you. Village of North Palm Beach was just right down the road. Town of Lake Park was in there. And then a couple of the other ones, like West Palm, I kind of threw in there because they're a larger employer, but still obviously significant in terms of this area. But, yeah, thank you so much,
Okay.
guys.
Thank you.
And gals.
Thank you all.
Of course, this is Rodney, who introduced himself.
Thank you, thank you, and good evening. I am Rodney Lewis. I'm the Director of Risk Services at Gearing Group and a risk consultant. And what I'm going to go through is primarily going to focus on the property section because obviously it's what's receiving the greatest amount of variance right now. Some of you may have felt it in your own property home insurances as the rates are hardening significantly, and we're seeing that expand throughout all areas of commercial and personal lines. So we are going to touch a little bit on some of your other lines of coverage with property casualty, but we're going to focus primarily on the property to give you an understanding of what you may or may not expect coming up. All right, so first, wrong thing, I'm tapping my computer. So first we want to discuss where you guys are. You're currently covered with the Florida Municipal Insurance Trust for your property coverages as well as some of your other lines of insurance. So similar to the benefits side, the Florida Municipal Insurance Trust is a program that is tailored specifically for governmental entities. And it is administered by the Florida League of Cities, which is the association that advocates for and responds almost like a political action committee to the state government on behalf of its cities, villages, and towns. The program is designed specifically with governmental entities in mind, and because it's a not-for-profit association, they're also able to focus primarily on surplus, retention, and solvency, and not have to worry about the profitability portion to provide revenue for their investors or shareholders. So the property portion of Tequesta's policy is part of a larger package that includes general liability, law enforcement, public officials, cyber, workers' compensation, and auto. All these coverages are packaged together in the program for the Florida Municipal Insurance Trust, which also allows for some additional credits or reductions because now they're packaging your entire program together. So where one might be seeing some significance, there might be a bit credits that they're available to apply to offset some of those increases. The property program that you currently have specifically includes your buildings and your contents, and your total insured value (TIV), which right now is hovering between $35 and $37 million. Your inland marine, which includes all those mobile equipment, things that you have, tractors, lawnmowers, those trailers that have the speed signs on them, whatever you have, the generator trailers, electrical generators. It also covers excess flood, earth movement. Thankfully, we don't get much of that. Non-scheduled property in the open, which is the light posts in the parking lot, the park benches that are around, and your business income and expenses. They also provide, in the last decade, they created what's called the Turnkey Disaster Recovery Program with a company called Synergy. And Synergy is a rapid response emergency and disaster recovery company that incorporated itself with the League of Cities and affords the city things like automatically coming in and starting the processes and bringing in vendors that the city already works with, creating an an emergency response program, so that you don't have to go through significant portions of procurement because they've already established those ahead of time in the middle of recovering and repairing assets that are damaged in a national emergency. So most cities are insured via the governmental insurance trusts, and there are several of them in the state of Florida. You have the FMIT, which you guys are a part of. There's the Preferred Governmental Insurance Trust, called PIGIT, and there's the Public Risk Management. These are three trusts, and they all have different council members who make up their boards, their governing boards. And these trusts all make up probably about 75 to 80% of the insurances for local cities, towns, and villages. Most cities do not insure in a standard program. You'll see that in some of the large cities, your Miami-Dades, your Orlandos, your Tampas. They will create a layered program for themselves because they're not going to fit into what the trust will provide for them. And they'll build what are called towers, where you layer carriers one on top of the other. So the first carrier says, I'm going to be responsible for the first 10 million of damage. And the next carrier says, well, I'll take 10 million after that. And then three others say, well, we'll take 1/3 of each of any of the layers after that. So it becomes quite a challenge to, when you build that capacity, but the biggest challenge becomes when a claim happens and now you're having adjusters from one carrier do their share, then another entire set of adjusters come in with theirs, and then another set of adjusters come in. So it does tend to elongate the process. It's not something that you have to deal with, but it's one of the reasons why a lot of cities prefer to work within the trust as opposed to layering their programs. We also have some self-insurance specific assets that are eliminated out of those programs, such as low-value property in the open and hardened assets that have very little impact for wind, flood, fire. So, keep doing my own computer. So right now what we're looking at in 2023, because of what happened to Hurricane Ian, and Hurricane Ian being one of the most devastating storms that we have experienced in the state of Florida, ranking third all time behind Katrina and Harvey. And Katrina, the numbers were exceeded because of the damage, the levees that broke and caused flooding into the city of New Orleans. Without those levees being broken, you would have Ian being probably the second largest storm we've experienced. 60 billion insured losses. FMIT incurred over 100 million in losses themselves. The entire city of Sanibel was a FMIT. And Pidgeot incurred over $50 million in losses themselves. So these hurricanes were devastating not only to the trusts, but to the standard markets as a whole. And the other disasters that happened around the country, earthquakes and fires that took place, all have led to a significant hardening in the markets. And the trusts rely on reinsurers to stabilize and to buy insurance coverage from them to reinsure what insurance they're providing to you. And those reinsurers were pulling out of the state of Florida in droves. Other carriers have been exiting the state of Florida en masse. And those that are remaining have to increase their costs in order to offset the other carriers that are no longer staying on board. So what that has resulted in is increases over 100% that we have seen this year with all carriers, not just carriers, but also in the trusts as well. So reinsurance costs are at all-time high. And on top of that, the investment loss that reinsurers have been taking throughout the in their global investments are creating a situation where now they're having claims that they're paying out and they're losing money on their investments as well, meaning that they're gonna get it back from us. So these inflationary factors, these losses, and these claims have created the environment that we're in right now with regards to property. Now, I hate to be the voice of gloom and doom in all this, but it's what we are currently seeing. Government trusts have indicated to us what some of the costs that they're going to be incurring, or some of the increases that they're going to be requesting from the clients. And we're looking at about anywhere from 75% to 225% increases in trust property programs. The average we're seeing overall, if we're counting trust as well as standard markets, is about 150 to 175 increase. What you have on display right now is a benchmarking of some of the other cities just with FMIT. Well, we do have one with Pidgeot, but just with FMIT and where they're located throughout the state of Florida and the indications we've been given from those carriers. So the Village of Tequesta, we've been given an indication of 200%. Again, these are indications, and we have no intention of allowing those indications to be a reality, but these are what we're being given. 205% for Northeast public entity with Florida Municipal Insurance Trust. As you can see, 125% there, 100%, and several 200%. These are what we're contending with right now. Will not be the end, but it's been the indication that the carriers are pleading for us to be able to understand why they need to charge. And as heartbroken as I am for them, it's my responsibility to make sure we don't see that type of increase. We're going to try to do our best to mitigate some of that. The difficulty is it's coming from all over. So we're not going to see, while the FMIT was asking for 200%, thankfully this other carrier here is going to give us a 103%. It's not like it's going to happen. We're looking at different variances, maybe of 15, 20, 25% tops. But we are going to try to see what we can do to reduce. And there are some other things we can do with regards to this current program that might help in those reductions as well. In the other lines that we have, such as your liability, auto liability, property, public officials, they've given us a break. Traditionally, we have seen anywhere from 8 to 12, 14% increases in those areas. They've told us, they've given us indications that we'd be looking at anywhere from 5 to 7. So again, it's the benefit of being in that package. So they're looking at us and telling us that in that package, we're going to give you reductions on the liability. We're not going to hit you there because we have to hit you so much on the property. It's what we're expecting to see, but again, we're going to keep working for the others. Workers' compensation, the Village of Tequesta saw, we just received your, so you saw a decrease of 107% versus 107 versus 1.13 in workers' compensation. What that means, workers' comp carriers provide you ratings based on your claims experience and entities that are similar to you. So what they say is, hey, if all is equal, you would receive a 1.0, which is nominal. The better claims history you have, or the better claims expectations, that variation decreases. The worse you are, or not the worse you are, but the more claims you experience over a period of time, that it would increase from 1.0 to 1 to 1.102. There's a correspondence of a charge, so for every point above 1.0, you are charged an additional percentage on your workers' compensation. Every point below, you are given a credit of that same percentage. So right now, the Village is going from a 13% deficit to a 7%. So you're reducing your workers' compensation, sight unseen, no other changes, by 6% alone with the reduction in your mod. And payroll adjustments also play a factor into that as well. So some things that Village of Tequesta can consider because of what you have already done and what we can also take a look at. What you've already done is conducted an independent appraisal, which has been great because it allows us to dictate the terms of the values of our assets versus accepting what the carrier tells us the value of those assets should be. We can certainly look at it and say, no, this is what a certified appraiser has indicated the value is. And I'm not going to, throw any carriers under the bus, but when you rely on the carrier to tell you what the value of yours is, you subject yourself to potential increases based on their need to increase premiums. So now we get to dictate ourselves, and we try to do this every 4 years with the village, ascertain a certified appraisal so that we can dictate to the carriers rather than be dictated to. So one of the things we can do is take a look at those asset values and understand which locations we have right now fall below our deductible. We have a deductible of $100,000, and if we're looking at, we have items that are covered that are $30,000, $50,000, a maintenance shed, a little storage garage. Well, we could say we're not gonna, we'll never receive coverage from that from a carrier anyway. So let's remove these from our policy, and that way we're not have such a large TIV. We have other options that have been given to us by FMIT about increasing our deductibles for named storm, which while they're available, we're gonna take a look and see whether or not they're viable for us. Right now, they're telling us 7.5%, going from 5% to 7.5% would provide us with an 8% decrease, and going to 10% would provide us with a 16% reduction. But when you're giving me a 16% reduction on a 200% increase, and you're telling me you're gonna take off 16%, I'm not moved. So we're gonna take a look at all things, and we're gonna conduct a potential maximum loss study that will allow us to go to the broader market to see what we actually may need to cover. And potential maximum loss study shows us in the city, in the event of a 100-year storm or a 250-year storm, this is what Tequesta can expect to have in losses. And so if that total loss is $13 million out of the 37, well, perhaps if we carried a limit of 15 million to 20 million, we might be able to experience some relief in these increases. But again, this is about risk tolerances that we're gonna take or take a look at. So these are all the different methods that we're gonna present, that we're gonna bring, and we're gonna take a look at, so we can put you guys in the best position to offset or navigate through these significant increases in property that we're seeing. And with that, questions?
Thank you. Council?
No, nothing at this point.
And you may not know the answer to this, but right now, so when do we expect actual written indications?
So we've already started the process in the program, and we're also being taking a look at other carriers. What we try to do is bring options or alternate proposals and evaluations to the city staff by mid-August. That way we can decide, we can go through different things and have them go back and look at other things. So that at worst case scenario, we're coming to you with a recommendation by at least the first meeting in September at the latest.
Okay. And then I'm gonna ask a question about something I know nothing about, but I learned about recently. And I don't know if it has any applicability or potential benefit when it comes to the named storm and wind. But is there any benefit, and it may not be possible with this type of policy, but with going with some kind of parametric insurance versus a typical traditional wind?
That's fantastic. So parametrics is something that we've been working and building with our carriers or at our parametric partners. Thus far, well, we haven't had any takers on it because it's such a variant. I mean, it's such a unique construct. But it is something we can take a look at. We do have those programs available to us. It's been very resistant in the property market thus far, but again, when you have scenarios like a 200% increase that you're facing across, people tend to be more open-minded to alternate proposals. But we can take a look at some parametric program possibilities and bring them to question.
Does it tend to be more or less? I mean, I guess it depends on the program, but
it does depend on the program. We haven't had much success in the state of Florida because Florida, by its nature, creates a lot of resistance from carriers to support programs like that. So we're hoping that we can convince some parametric companies to take a look at this area. We think it's a tremendous opportunity, and we want to be able to see if we can bring those options as well.
okay. And if it is something that was possible within this FMIT program,
No,
so it would have to be totally outside.
it would be totally outside of the program.
Got it. Thank you.
So, when you were talking about the losses FMIT incurred, similar question when we were talking about health benefits. What, in fact, was their incurred loss ratio? And how much of the risk do they retain within the trust versus how much of the risk do they actually reinsure?
That's a great question. Normally, I can't speak to exactly what their loss ratio was. I know what some of their losses were, but not their loss ratio. Normally, they had surpluses that they retained, and I want to say it was close to 40 million, and then went to reinsurance from there. I don't know if they were still able to buy that same amount, and that's been some of the challenges. They have to retain more of the risk on their own, or it became unfundable. I know a couple of the other trusts had that same issue where they had to buy less reinsurance than they had in the past, and in order to secure with the same funds that they had. So although I cannot tell you what the loss ratio is, it's almost a certainty that they weren't able to purchase the same funding limits of the same reinsurance.
So with the trust itself, do we know what level of capital that they maintain? Because normally if you're looking at, I'll say something you already know, when you're looking at reinsurance, one of the ways you can do it is you can do stochastic modeling rather than linear modeling. As you said, you look at the 100-year event, but then you look at your probabilities.
Right.
And you make determinations as to, okay, how much can we retain based on the level of capital we want to have on an ongoing basis versus how much we reinsure. Do we know what do we know what the capital levels of the trust are at this point?
I don't have
They
that
haven't shared
information
that,
with me, no.
they don't share that kind of information.
Well, they can. I mean, you guys
Okay.
are the Florida League of Cities administered that trust, and the Florida League of Cities responds and answers to you. So that information can easily be retained, and I can reach out
Okay.
to them to see if I can attain that information as well. And I know annually they do have their Florida League of Cities meeting, which will happen in August. And we'll
Okay.
be in attendance there, and at least in that meeting, they should be able to share that information with us. As of now, they've been mum about it, so I can't tell you what it is,
Okay.
but hopefully by August, when we have that.
Because it'd be interesting to be able to look at that information vis-a-vis what they're asking for, for the
Yeah.
rate increase to see if it's actually warranted or justified. Because like you said, an indication of 200% is highly unusual and very significant, so.
Yes, yes it is.
Okay, all right, thank you.
Thank you.
I'm good.
All right, thank you so much for your hard work and presentation. I'm sure we're anxious to get the final results in August.
Yeah. Well, thank you very much.
Thank you.
Thank you very much, both of you.
All right. Marlene, do you have anything else to add?
No, that's it.
Okay.
Just happy they're here.
All right. Yes, thank you so much for coming tonight. We appreciate it. All right, so I'll adjourn this meeting and we'll start back up at 6.
Sounds good.
All right.
Yes, ma'am.
Yes. Kind of important, right?
Someone bought out Wachovia and then they went somewhere else.
That was my work, that's how I met.
That's so cool. That's so cool. That's nice. That's nice.
Last night was like, there's not many of them. So,
I don't know. It depends on who's asking.
it's like my dad was president of the
I don't know. I'm gonna go do some jumping jacks in the parking lot.
Middle name. That's what they call it. Oh, it's like ice cream. I got this. This is it, that's it.
I'm sure you've got a presentation.
My niece. All these babies are being born. Not coming
My whole summer.
But again, that's
People are just gonna, at certain points, they're just gonna say, you know what? I'm just gonna roll with it.
Yeah, I love it when you're doing that. You're not just that fire. Yes. Well. Our boss just did all here. She's like, and then she saw some. No, I see it. Yeah. Yeah. And the funny thing is, then dropped that, she dropped it last year, and then she saw some practice.
So they all leave, like, hey, I got hit, I'm taking my toys and I'm leaving.
Can I just, can I have control, or can I even write? All I want to do is change.
If you leave, take your own equipment. That's what they all cover. Take your own insurance.
Yeah, I want to put a, no, what I did is this one right here. All I want to do
No problem, you don't have to pass. So we
I love that shirt. You know why?
Well, I know why. She tells me every time I hold one, I wear it once a year. So it's my lucky
the
time.
only
So
thing
I
we
don't
can
wear
do
it.
is try to get more funding.
I'm not for
It's a gator.
The dark, the blue, no, the blue is the dark comes for gators. It's very close.
No, I'm just trying to change the speed on the animation.
I don't know what to say. This was my HR.
Well, you know what? No, I don't need this.
I
I got my twin towers.
I'm the seller.
Man, it heats up.
I'd be okay with it. So I'm always
I don't
like,
know, man. It gets real hot.
yeah.
Talk about being in the hot seat.
Yeah, exactly.
Literally.
Really feel like we're in the hot seat. All aspects.
We've got two quasi-judicial, do my little spiel.
Yep, of course, for the church and, but not the conceptual. Yep. Got it.
I'll read a little disclosure statement.
For the conceptual, yeah. Okay, thank you.
Round them up.
You'll get counsel.
Go get at least one more.
Lori's up there, I think the rest are back there. Oh, and Rick's right here, sorry, Rick. He's over here. Yeah, like,
You're ready.
let's go.
We need at least 3.
I am an on-time person. It's drastically warmed up already though with everyone in here. Yeah.
Hello, Vice Mayor. Good morning.
It's a Friday, yeah.
It will be after we get out of here.
Are they coming?
I can see the other
Oh,
one.
they are.
We have a quorum, so we'll start. Oh, they were probably in the room.
Yeah, they're in the conference room.
Do you want this?
I'll hit you with
Was this on my calendar?
All right, I'd like to call the meeting to order. It is 6:01 p.m. It's our July 13th, 2023 regular council meeting. Lori, can I get roll call?
Mayor Young,
Here.
Vice Mayor Brandon,
Here.
Councilmember Canberra,
Here.
Councilmember Painter,
Here.
Councilmember Support.
Here.
Okay, and the invocation and pledge of allegiance will be led by Councilmember Sartori tonight.
Thank you. Let's pray. Dear Heavenly Father, thank you for this day. Thank you for this opportunity to gather together as a community, being ever cognizant that each of us here this evening has already served a full day of demands in our own personal and professional lives, and that while we may gather this evening with different opinions, different points of view, and different expectations, we gather this evening with one objective in mind: to make the very best decisions for the community that we all love so dearly, the village of Tequesta. Please keep your protective hands over our police and fire departments as they leave their families and place their lives at risk every day to serve our residents, most of whom they will never meet or get the opportunity to know. Continue to bless each member of our village staff and leadership team as they guide and steward the services and programs that make Tequesta the amazing village that it is. We ask your protection over all of our residents that call Tequesta home. And for those of us on the dais this evening that will discuss and debate the critical and important items on the agenda, we ask for your patience, understanding, acceptance, and spirit of compromise. As we begin debate and discussion this evening, let us be ever mindful that it is only from the depths of our valleys that we can see the true heights of our mountaintops. In your name we pray. Amen.
Amen.
Please stand for the pledge.
I pledge allegiance
Okay, I'd like to get a motion of approval of the agenda with adding a request for village council support of Senate Bill 1430 as the last item under the regular agenda.
So moved.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
All right, first up, we have a presentation tonight. It's the recognition of Tequesta's First Baptist Church for their partnership with our election process. Lori?
Yes. The Village of Tequesta would like to celebrate a truly exceptional partnership that has significantly contributed to our community. We would like to recognize Tequesta's First Baptist Church for their unwavering support and invaluable contribution to the election process within our village. For many years, Tequesta's First Baptist Church has opened its doors to us, graciously offering their facilities free of charge, allowing us to hold elections, and ensuring that our residents' voting rights are fully enabled. The church has not only provided us with a physical space, but has gone above and beyond by opening their facilities early, 5:30 in the morning, and closing them late, sometimes 8:30, 9 o'clock at night, accommodating the needs of our community. Their generosity and dedication has made a significant difference in our election process. By providing a welcoming and accessible location, they have helped create an environment where our residents can exercise their democratic rights with ease and comfort. Their partnership has truly been instrumental in strengthening the fabric of our community. On behalf of the Village of Tequesta, we would like to express our heartfelt gratitude to Tequesta's First Baptist Church for their exceptional partnership.
Very nice.
All right, moving on to the consent agenda. Can I get a motion to approve the consent agenda?
So moved.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Right, next, communications from citizens on items that are not on the agenda. Lori, do we have any?
I do. We have Gina Levistian.
Hi. Sorry. Good evening. My name is Gina Levesque, and I am the Intake and Compliance Manager for the Palm Beach County Commission on Ethics. Today, I'm here to talk to you about the Commission on Ethics and our goal to enhance the public's trust in government. In 2010, the Commission on Ethics was established as a result of a grand jury investigation and recommendation from 2009, and I've been with the office since that time. We were created to provide oversight, transparency, and accountability for over 12,000 elected officials, public employees, and advisory board members in the county. We also have jurisdiction over lobbyists, principals and employers of lobbyists, and vendors. Our commission is independent of any county or municipal oversight, and our commission is made up of 5 members of the community that are chosen from independent groups across the county. As you are aware, county government and every municipality in the county is under our jurisdiction. The Code of Ethics is a 12-page, actually 13-page document that creates a backstop to enhance public trust by ensuring that public officials and employees conduct themselves independently and impartially and do not use their offices for independent gain. The key to successful ethics programs is education and prevention. Ongoing training, advisory opinions, and the establishment of a culture of ethics is our goal. The ethics programs are simply designed to further the public's trust in government. The availability of our staff to train and answer questions through our advisory opinions may also prevent ethical misconduct from becoming criminal misconduct. And to date, we have 523 advisory opinions on our website. While the Commission has statutory authority as a quasi-judicial board, code enforcement board, to issue letters of reprimand, letters of instruction, and even fines of up to $500 per violation, our goal is to educate those under our jurisdiction to prevent violations before they occur. All of our advisory opinions, gift forms, voting conflict forms, and outside employment forms, as well as complaints, are on our website under the Databases tab. In closing, I want to thank you all for doing such a great job for your community. I enjoy coming to this town, one of the many that I go to. Please remember your solemn duty to consider the ethics of your actions and ask first, act later. If anyone would like to speak to someone in our office, I happen to answer the phone all the time, so our number is 561-355-1937. No, that's mine. 1915 is our hotline, or palmbeachcountyethics.com. Does anyone have any questions? Thank you.
Thank you for coming.
Harold Taylor.
Harold Taylor, 13 Chapel Court. Subject is new buildings. At the last meeting, George Gentile gave a conceptual presentation for a new office building to be located at 110 Bridge Road. Village Council had many comments about its appearance. Most stated that the building appearance was too modern and wanted its look to be toned down. Obviously, those comments were based on the appearance of the new building on the east side of US 1. That building definitely looks better now that it is being painted, and landscaping will improve the looks even more. However, I suspect there may be a council member, past or present, that wishes they had asked that owner of that building to also tone down the building's looks. From my perspective, that building is just too square, too bulky, and too massive. Thank you for asking George Gentile to come back with a toned-down look for the new building that would be built on Bridge Road. Thanks kindly.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Okay. Moving on, communications from council.
Since our last council meeting, I did attend, along with Vice Mayor Brandon, the groundbreaking of the Lux Forte, which is just north of County Line, a little finger peninsula there on the Intracoastal, and we will be providing some utilities for them. They were very gracious that the Vice Mayor and I were able to rearrange our schedules to be there. But the point I want to make is that I think it's going to be a nice project. It's going to take up every square inch of that peninsula. But the team that they assembled, one was former council member, sat in this chair, Bruce Prince, is one of the, is doing the land clearing. But I was very impressed with the quality of the folks that they have assembled for that project. So while they're going to be neighbors, they are very grateful that we were able to attend. And I think it's going to, while it may be something that we may not look at and say that we love it, it's going to be it's going to be a quality building, and I think it's going to be a nice addition to that little corner of the world there. So, that's it.
Mine's short and sweet. Thank you all for being here. Awesome to see such a filled room, as always, for our council meetings. That's it.
And I have nothing more to add this evening.
I have nothing.
I have nothing to add either. Standing reports, village attorney,
Nothing to report from legal.
village manager.
I'm not so sure. I got a couple things. So just a couple updates. The building department has met with the 13-7 of the HOAs over on Beach Road. I know council previous asked us to reach out to them regarding the turtle ordinance, but I know that the building department has reached out to the HOAs, met with 7 of them, talked about the sea turtle ordinance that we're discussing and up for discussion. Also the required inspections on Beach Road. Also gave them a point of contact if they do have issues, and so it's been very positive, and kudos to Jose and his staff for doing that. The EAC meeting they had a meeting yesterday. They discussed their initiatives, the carbon reduction actions they can take, recycling efforts, leaf blowers, medical waste are some of the items that they're going to take up in the future. Their next meeting is August 9th for anybody that wants to participate. The El Portal project has began. We are waiting on the dewatering permit. We hope to get that any day, and that'll really kick the project off. As you guys know, the sidewalk project is progressing on Seabrook to Riverside. We are installing the signs over on Cypress Drive near the railroad tracks that I think Mr. Sartori requested, just with the warning that there's high-speed train right there. We are adding some navigation lights to the bridge in the coming days. And then our next meeting is July 31st. It's a budget meeting that will start at 5, and then we'll go right into our regular meeting after that. There's a lot of good things going on in the village, but those are just some highlights. So thank you.
Thank you. Any questions for the manager?
No. No.
Okay, police department.
Evening, Mayor, Vice Mayor, Council. You have before you some of the highlights for the month. Just a couple of things I want to highlight. One being the July 4th run that was ran by Sergeant Blanc, who did a phenomenal job. not only, people don't realize how much planning goes into that, pre-planning, during the meeting along with the fire department, and obviously during the event, but as well as post-event, kind of going over what we can improve upon. So Kurt always does a great job with that. July 28th, our officers, Sergeant Blanc will be there as well, will be honored by the Traffic Safety Awards. I think I told you all in Orlando. We have been designated to be top 3. We won't know until that day, but that's based on enforcement, education, accidents throughout the village during the year. So stay tuned as far as what place we come in. One of the things I want to touch on, and I want to thank Mayor Young and Vice Mayor. 2 weeks ago, you both had reached out to myself and the manager about an unfortunate incident that occurred in an unincorporated area to a resident of ours. As a result, this young man was made chief for a day by the police department. I have to tell you, he's 12 years old. What a great kid. He's got a bright future. It was a traumatic incident, and like I said, the mayor and the vice mayor reached out to us on a Saturday and Sunday, to me and Jeremy. And what we did as a police department, as a village, is we put arms around them to show them that we're nothing but love and we're inclusive in this village, and made him chief for a day. Brought him to different areas, had great real conversations about society, and things aren't always going to be perfect, but it's how we react to them. And I just wanted to thank you too, because I don't think people realize sometimes that the phone never goes off with you all, just like it doesn't with us. So when there's a concern from a resident, you all are on top of it as well as we are. But we were very happy to be a part of this young man, to hopefully have a positive impact. But I know Mom was very happy, and you know, from our side, it was a great opportunity to meet someone in the community that went through a traumatic event, but I think is better as a result of it. So, and that's all I have.
Any questions or comments?
No, thank you.
Thank you.
Thanks, Chief.
Right, fire department.
Good evening, Mayor, Vice Mayor, Village Council, Village Attorney, Village Manager, and Village Clerk. You have my report. The fire department's been very busy in the last 30, 40 days, specifically with really a whole ton of training. I want to focus on that a little bit tonight as I talk to you. So we started off the month of June with Swiftwater 1 and 2, a combination course. We were able to get 3 of our personnel through completely. So we have 3 more members getting ready to join our surface water rescue team. So it'll bring our total up to 7. This is something that's very important, obviously, just because of what we're surrounded by, which is water. We have water everywhere. So this is an important step in getting to those numbers that we need for that team. We continued with our emphasis on training with vehicle extrication training. This involved all of our new equipment. So it's important to get the new equipment out of the box and see, for one, that it does work, since we did spend a lot of money on it. And 2, the guys have to know the little intricate details of working with the new equipment. This specific equipment is made by Genesis, so they actually provided the instructor basically as part of the purchase. And they came out and did 3 days of training, so all of our shifts got to get out and get their hands on the training. Our officers have now been basically trained as train the trainers, so we can duplicate this training over and over again. The equipment's the biggest difference in this vehicle extrication equipment is it no longer requires a power unit, a fuel supply. It's battery operated. The batteries that these units come with can run for hours. So we can do multiple extrications on one battery, let alone the fact that we're going to carry more than one battery on the trucks. So this is a step in the right direction for the future. You're also not tethered to that power unit. You know, typically you've got a cable. Cables make it hard to maneuver on car accident scenes and so forth, between the debris of the vehicles, the movement of the patients and all that. It's good to be able to freely move around the scene. So if you get a chance, next time we have extrication, check with me and come on out and watch it. I will tell you don't want to do it in July like these guys, or June like these guys did, because it was hot. We continued our training emphasis again back to new tools and equipment by bringing in Palm Beach State College. They taught 2 classes on aerial operations. So as everybody on council and pretty much everybody in this room is aware, we received a new ladder truck back in May, and we are undergoing the training for that truck. So this was part of that emphasis. A lot of people might be saying, well, what's the difference, Chief? Well, there is a difference. When you're going to operate as a ladder company first, there is a difference. We've had an aerial in Tequesta for many years. That was a platform. That's a ride in an elevator. This is a ladder. You're climbing it with the equipment. You have to know how to deploy the truck. There's different things with the truck. There's different things with the tools and the setup. So that's why it's important to do this type of training. So we were able to do roof operations, and then a second class the following week was on elevated rescue. And again, we're very happy with the instructors that we got and the training that we got from Palm Beach State. So this is a program you'll see me push to continue in the future. What else did we do? We did the Hurricane Delilah exercise. This is going to tie into our CRS points later on, so I think we're doing that meeting on August 4th. The fire department is always a part of that. So we're currently compiling all the information for the after-action report, and I'll have that to the manager here just prior to that meeting. Additional training. I was able to attend with firefighter and fire inspector Zach Wickert, the Florida Fire Marshals and Inspectors Conference. So we spent several days, at the conference in Orlando going over new codes and specifically learning about things like BDA. BDA is a new thing that's coming out that the governor just signed off on that requires certain buildings, some of those high rises here in Tequesta, to be evaluated to see how this radio strength or radio signal strength is within the building. So you're going to see us doing that. We are actually already sending out letters to all the high rises right now. Excuse me. During that same month, Judy Jones, my office manager, completed ICS 400. Again, important for Emergency Operations Center personnel. We're trying to get more people involved in that to try to strengthen our EOC. One of the biggest concerns I have as an emergency manager is simply running out of personnel. We're a small community. There's some strength in numbers. This is cross-training, so we're trying to do that with staff. Along that same line, both Judy and myself finished HERVAC training. Actually, the second time for me, I'm not going to say it was better, but it was worth the refresher. So HERVAC training is it's good for tracking the storms, but most of the information we actually get from the National Weather Service or from Palm Beach County Web EOC. But still good to see and be able to develop our own. So we might help us with our exercises in the future. So it's, again, still worthwhile. Coming up, we have a lot of events. The first one, of course, is this weekend. We have our Fire Department, Police Department Awards Banquet. So I hope to see everybody there. We're going to do our Ladder 85 push-in. That's going to be August 1st. There will be a flyer coming out on that shortly. One event at a time. So we'll do the awards, then we'll get to the push-in. Push-in ceremony, that's historic for the, dates back into the history of the fire department. That's literally back to horse-drawn carriages. That's why the trucks get pushed in. They didn't always have motors and horses, so they would push them in, tie the horses up to them, be able to take them out on a run. So we'll be doing that. At that point, the truck will be in service. So we are preparing for Operation Safe Start with our friends over in PD, because the start of school is just around the corner. We will be doing a badge pinning also in August for two of our rookies that are coming off probation. One, Joseph Mariana, and Kayla Atkinson's Kayla Preston now. So they'll both be getting their official off probation badge and swearing ins. We have, I think that's going to conclude it, because if I go too much further, I'll be talking about things in October, and I don't want to get too far ahead. Obviously, I'm going to say there'll be a September 11th remembrance, and I know at least one or two of you have mentioned a birthday party coming up. So our department will be turning 30 later this year. We're going to do something. So with that, you have my report.
Thank
If there are any questions, I'd be happy to answer them.
Council? No questions, but I appreciate you pulling some officers into your training, especially the Swiftwater, because obviously whoever gets there first, it's important. Whoever gets there first can help to some degree. And I love that you guys absolutely always work together as a team. Even today, I saw both PD and fire working as a team, making sure both were safe. PD was guarding fire from the crazy drivers.
They're a great group of guys. We love our police
That
department.
is very
too,
much
so, yeah.
loving to see
No
that.
kidding
out in the
aside,
community.
and the events surrounding the young man that we made police chief for the day. Obviously, that was the events themselves were terrible, but I think the way we came together and the way the police department stepped up and led that, I think kudos to you guys, and I think the outcome was good. So
Yeah,
That's what I think.
I don't tolerate that behavior, but the fact that they aren't even Tequesta kids, I will keep my mother mouth shut. The mommy in me was not happy.
I don't blame you.
All right, thank you, Chief.
Have a good night.
Thank you, Chief.
Utilities Department.
Good evening, Marjorie Craig, Utilities Director. I know we have a long agenda. The manager already talked about Old Portal, and Doug Chambers, the Public Works Director, has done a lot of heavy lifting to get everything prepared for, with tree removal. Now you can see the nice sight line. The mayor, we're fixing to do a video to talk about the project tomorrow. The DEP vulnerability assessment, our engineering intern was going to do a presentation this evening, but we have more material that we'd like to present, and so we're going to put that on the workshop. We also feel that there's a data gap that we'd like to fill and request some additional grant money, because we can get 100% grant money for the data gap, as opposed to going back later and getting only a partial grant for that. Pipelining and stormwater structure repair, I just want to mention and thank you for, we were able to do $207,000 worth of pipelining this year, and $10,000 worth of structure repair, and we have more planned for next year ahead of the rainy season. Dover Ditch, grant money, and we've got the permitting going, so we're going to be ready to go for that. Got some pictures for stormwater repairs that were made at Dover Road there. If you want to take a look at those. Water treatment plant projects, you can read about those here, and we can talk more about those as we move forward. Also, let's talk about a minute about the dashboard, customer service dashboard, revenues tracking along. And accounts receivable, I was looking at that and talked to Dennis, our customer service, and the finance director. Next month, we're going to bring forward I guess there's also an annual write-off that's typically done, and that has not been done so far. So that's why that's tracking so high. So we'll come back next month with that. Any questions?
Counsel?
One question, on the accounts receivable, how much of that is commercial versus resident? Do we track that?
We do track that, and I'll have to get back to you on that, because I looked that up, but it's escaping me. I've got so much on my mind for the other agenda items, but we do.
Just a suggestion, my thought was maybe, I know you've got two colors on the bar chart already, but maybe if we could add a color differentiation so we can see the commercial relative to the resident experience.
Good idea. We'll
Okay.
do that.
Thank you, ma'am.
Any other council comments or questions? All right, thanks, Marjorie.
Thank you.
All right, moving on to the regular agenda. We do not have any old business, so new business. Agenda item 8, consider a conceptual presentation by MCM Acquisitions for a quick service restaurant and medical office building at 150 Tequesta Drive. Nilsa? Or, I'm sorry, Dylan, you want to do your?
Thank you, Mayor. Item number 8 is a conceptual presentation. This conceptual presentation is not a quasi-judicial hearing, and no action shall be taken by the village council beyond discussion with the applicant. Neither the outcome of this conceptual presentation nor any comments made during this conceptual presentation by any village council member or village staff is a guarantee or assurance in any way of the final action that may be taken by the village council pursuant to a formal application for site plan review as provided under our section 78-334.
Good evening, Madam Mayor, council members. The application in front of you is from MCM Acquisition for 6,000 square foot quick service restaurant and a medical office building. This is potentially located at the existing Bank of America Bank. So as you are aware, we had the previous months also another conceptual presentation. So I think this is the second conceptual presentation with regard to this specific site. The applicant is here and he will have so please.
Thank you, Nilsa. Ryan Mahalis, 1200 Northwest 17th Avenue, Delray Beach, with MCM Acquisitions. So as Nilsa pointed out, we are proposing demising the existing Bank of America branch located at 150 Tequesta Drive at the southwest corner of Tequesta Drive and US 1. What we're proposing doing is taking the existing approximately 6,100 square foot bank branch, doing some minor modifications to the site plan and facade to get it into compliance with what we're proposing. The medical office will be approximately 35 to 3,600 square feet. It is a permitted use in the mixed use zoning district, which this building falls. The quick service restaurant, or fast food restaurant with drive-through, as your code describes, is actually, it's less of a drive-through and more of a pickup window. So there's no order board, there's less queuing. You place your order on your phone, they tell you it'll be ready at 5:35. You show up at 5:35, grab your food out of the window, and leave the facility. Or you can sit down and eat on the interior. So that said, it is a special exception, and one of the items related to that exception is a 15-foot perimeter landscape buffer. And we're aware in the north side, I don't know if you can scroll down into the memo. We have our conceptual site plan where we are expanding that landscape buffer an additional 5 feet so that we can fall into compliance with the special exception. Here we go. So right there, the north side of the site is where we're discussing adjusting the parking, using parallel parking so that we can expand the buffer and be in compliance. As far as changes to the building go, we're trying to keep the changes as minimal as possible. With the facade, we're gonna do a little bit of work to spruce it up, make it fresh, make it clean, but keep it in the same architectural style that exists and fits into the architectural theme of the surrounding area. As you know, we would like to keep everything as fitting into the area as possible, as I know that is a major concern with municipalities. The other thing is we will be removing the drive-through awnings there. There's about 3 lanes currently under a drive-through awning. We will be removing the full awning, just having the drive-through window, allowing us to have our pickup window stacking, as well as a bypass lane and additional parking to the south side of the site. So that said, I would like to hear from the council if you guys have any feedback or questions.
Thank you. Council?
Yeah, thank you, first of all, for your interest in the Village of Tequesta and making an investment in the property. Yeah, on May 11th, as Nielsa had mentioned, we had another conceptual presentation, and it was a single-use facility instead of a multi-tenant. And that is, I don't like, being very direct, I don't like the split concept. I'm a little more comforted by the pickup window versus a traditional stacking and queuing order board. But depending on what type goes in here, and I don't know what you're thinking, and maybe you haven't thought about that yet, all that traffic is going to dump out right onto US 1, not 200 feet north of, people are turning to head south, excuse me, to go south on US 1, people coming through a green light. I see a lot of issues there. I have another concern. I drove the property today.
Okay.
The CVS just south of you also has a drive-through window. And while they're going in opposite directions, there is a kind of an access between the two properties right there. And I can just see, depending on the type of quick service restaurant is, people coming through this CVS, making a hard right to go back into there to pick up their order after they went and got their prescription. At the same time, my concern is there's a school immediately to the west of you in the Harvey School.
Okay.
And while that's a smaller population school as far as student count, there's a convergence right there at the 3 corners. And that's a concern that I have. So like to see if you move forward with this. There's going to be a lot of work to do to get me where I want, but I just want to be very upfront with you. This is the gateway to Tequesta, and I'll throw a name out there. If it's a Chipotle or something like that, I don't want to see stacking of cars. I don't want to see that be the welcome to Tequesta. Just not the vision that I have. So
Totally understand, and as you pointed out, if we were to proceed, we would obviously work with staff, our civil engineer, traffic engineers, to make sure we alleviate any issues.
but I appreciate you listening to my concerns and think my Yeah, I guess it would be my concern. So thank you very much. But again, thank you for your consideration of coming to Tequesta. We appreciate that.
Thank you for your feedback.
Yeah, so I'll echo that. Thank you. Obviously, we appreciate you being here and your interest in Tequesta. But what Rick said, I mean, I understand it's currently a bank, or it's not even a bank anymore, it's just sitting there vacant.
Correct.
So anything is, I guess, technically an improvement to what it is today, but it is a very important piece of property for the village. It is right there next to our sign. I'll echo also what he said. Not crazy about, I don't need to see it, but not crazy about the multiple use. And it's not even so much, it's a traffic issue for me, but it's also, I just wonder if I believe someone here, I know it's a medical office up there, but I believe it was really intended as a urgent care, or somewhere in the application I saw that.
Correct.
And for me, subjectively, I just don't know if we need one. We have one right across the street at Helix. I know obviously we can't tell you what to do based off technically off just the use alone, but I just don't know if it's the highest and best use for that property. That being said, early in the process, you might convince me otherwise. But right now, if I'm looking at a QSR like Rick, Council Member Satori.
You can say Rick.
Okay, Rick. Thanks, Frank. Don't love the idea of seeing a chain restaurant as we're entering Tequesta, but I get it. This wouldn't be the first chain restaurant in Tequesta. So
Understand, and one thing I would like to caveat is both of these tenants are publicly traded Class A companies,
Yeah.
so it's not the lower end. It would be someone who would add a lot of value to this commercial corridor, especially as you said, right near the sign coming into Tequesta.
100%. But we appreciate you. I mean, this is the whole purpose of this conceptual presentation, right? So
Yeah, totally.
we love that people are interested in our village. We love hearing about your intentions for the site, but I think there are some improvements that could occur to maybe make the traffic not so much an issue, and also potentially the uses. Just my 2 cents.
Thank you.
You actually stepped into one area, I don't know if you're at liberty to disclose this, but I was curious as to, given that you have very specific uses identified here, if you could share who those 2 potential tenants are at this point.
At this time, I'm not at liberty to share this. But we
I'm
do
not-
have tenants identified, so
Okay.
yes, they are specific.
I'm not as concerned about the traffic, because you can funnel the traffic out to the right and back onto Tequesta Drive and down US 1 that way. The one thing I do have a question about is, as I understand it, there was a shared parking arrangement in perpetuity with the building immediately to the west. When you look at meeting the requirements for this particular space, are you aware of that, and has that been fully considered at this point?
From our perspective, yes, we have looked at it, we are aware of it. The cross parking agreement just deals with the western parking spaces, kind of the
Correct.
west side. It looks like the same pavement as the building directly west of us. Currently on the site that we propose, there are 76 parking spaces. With our existing uses and square footages, it is 57, 58 parking spaces depending.
Okay.
I haven't looked at the rounding to be quite
Okay,
candid.
I just want to make sure that you were, because what we can't do is approve something that would put another structure into non-compliance. So I just wanted to make sure that you were fully appraised of that, and you were aware in acquiring this property, if you do, that you had that issue outstanding, so. And otherwise, I'm not going to repeat what they said. Again, I think it is an important space. We do want to see best use. I don't know whether, again, if you're within code and you do the things within code, obviously you're asking for a variance, but if you do things within code, that works very much in your favor. But again, appreciate the fact that you're willing to come here and listen to the input that you're being given, because that's in your best interest as well as being in the best interest of the village and the residents. So thank you.
Totally agree and appreciate your feedback.
Hi, welcome. So I do appreciate you coming for conceptual. This is our standard practice now, which is very helpful for our residents to visually and transparently see what is coming into their hometown. Because again, we are a home. We are not a bypass city. We are not super touristy. We're not totally full of chains, so addressing that. I am also in favor of not loving the idea of using a double business in the one building, and here's why. One, I think you're gonna have issues with your parking and meeting requirements, even with the shared parking to the building in the west. I can't say for certain, I don't really want to go down that road, but I know that when that property around it was being for sale, which has sold, it was possibly putting that property owner who owns the building with the Harvey Academy, possibly in parking code enforcement issues. So you're gonna be adding two businesses. I just think you're really reaching, and I think you're overreaching. The pickup window, logically, engineering-wise, I don't see it on your presentation here. It's not designed on this presentation to where someone's parking and then walking up to a window. You have it designed as a drive-up window.
It is a drive-up window. You drive in your car.
So they
and-
park and then you alert them. So again, that's extra parking that someone's have to park, take up a space for X amount of minutes, and then you have to funnel that traffic around a median to go up. I think you're reaching again. Secondly, I think your presentation for design and modifications to the buildings aren't even presented. I'm disappointed that they weren't submitted. We have another presentation tonight that is a smaller group, isn't a corporate group, and they actually are presenting a lot more than you are. So I'd like to see you come back if you move forward with an actual presentation. There's even free apps out there that you can use. So I have nothing to really tell you feedback-wise as far as the design or the aesthetics of the building. You say they're gonna fit around, but how do we know? There's no colors listed, there's no textures listed, you're just saying a metal awning, that's it. I need more. Otherwise, our residents are going on a lot of hope and faith, and unfortunately, in the past, that hasn't worked out. So I'd like to see more transparency, come back with more actual design information.
Understood.
That's it.
Okay, thank you. All right, I won't regurgitate anything that's already been said. I do want to say I think the proposed elevations are a nice upgrade. I saw you suggested adding some stone. I like having some mixed materials. You know, if this were to ever move forward, I have said this, I think, at our last meeting with the conceptual presentation. Please consider your color palette. Everything we see is gray and white these days, and I don't want the entire village to be gray and white. So please keep that in mind. I do think there is a good opportunity to improve and enhance landscaping. There's pretty established landscaping there, but it doesn't look great. And like we've said, it's really kind of is the gateway to coming into Tequesta, and we have our signs there. So there's a really good opportunity to kind of enhance that landscaping, to beautify the property, and then, you know, possibly add shade trees on US 1 and Tequesta Drive for pedestrians. You know, you might want to consider a civic open space or, you know, open seating for the restaurant, something just to make it a little more quaint, welcoming, and really enhance that area. I'm not against the split use, that doesn't bother me. But I do, are you familiar with our master corridor commercial plan? I don't know if anyone.
I am not, no.
Okay, so we do have a commercial corridor plan for all our commercial corridors, which would apply here. And there are some guidelines in there for drive-through locations and kind of thoughts on formula businesses. So I would suggest taking a look at that. Things like civic open space are also discussed in there. But you know, at the end of the day, we have a really strong local business community that we support, and we appreciate the quaint feel of that. I do know that there are some local businesses, especially restaurants, that are hurting a little bit from the bridge closure. So it would be hard to approve a special use possibly during the bridge closure. I would hate to see another restaurant come in and have our, you know, businesses that some are already hurt even more during the bridge closure. So timing could be an issue as well.
Understood.
Okay, I think that's all I have. So thank you for coming tonight. Do you have any additional questions or comments for us?
No, I greatly appreciate you guys taking the time to look at what we presented and give your feedback, and we'll take it all into consideration and come up with more detailed plans as, you know, if and as we move forward. So.
Awesome.
Okay.
Thank you very much. Appreciate
Thank
that.
you. Nilsa, do you have anything to add? Okay, I'll open it to public comment. Oh, okay. We don't take a motion on this either since it's conceptual. So I'll move on to agenda item 9, a special exception use for First Southern Baptist Church.
Mayor, items number 9 and 10 on our agenda this evening are quasi-judicial in nature. That being said, if there is anyone present here this evening who plans to give testimony regarding either of these applications, I need to swear you in. So if you could please stand up at this time, if you plan to speak. Raise your right hand.
Are you presenting?
Do you swear to tell the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth?
I do.
Very good. Thank you so much. At this point in time, I would call for members of the council to give any disclosures that they might need at this time. If you've conducted a site visit, if you've had any discussions with the applicant, now would be the time to put it on the record for our first item, number 9.
I have none.
I have none either.
I have not.
No discussions, but I was on the property recently looking at the sidewalk area because that was in our budget for our sidewalk area.
Nothing to disclose.
Very good.
Good evening, Madam Mayor, council members. The application in front of you is from First Southern Baptist Church for an special exception use approval pursuant to the village code. The applicant is requesting a special exception use modification for an existing place of assembly located in the R1 zoning district to allow for building changes on building aesthetics, the changing of the use, and the revision of the landscaping to allow for a school to operate within the existing building. So the staff report is very detailed, has many pages, and staff is proposing 2 conditions of approval that I would like to state those after the applicant has a presentation. Please.
Good evening again. My name is Mike Richardson. It's my pleasure to serve as the lead pastor at Tequesta's First Baptist. And I just wanted to share the heart from our church of why we're doing this, and I'll let our architect, Steve Knight, share all the details. So our church was started in 1958, right over on US 1 in Tequesta, 1 year after Tequesta was incorporated. And really the mission of our church is to provide value for this neighborhood, for this community. And it's been so cool to see our church live that out. I've lived in Tequesta and worked at Tequesta since 2013, and our church just has desired to provide space for elections. Our property obviously is prime location for the Freedom 4 Miler, Run for the Pies, food trucks, all that kind of stuff. We want to provide everything for police, fire to do training. So that's why we're here, to really bring value to the community. And we think that we have a new way to provide value to our community in starting a preschool. So I'm a parent of 4 kids. I know many people have in here have kids, grandkids, and school choice is just such a burning topic on parents' minds, grandparents' minds. And we want to have schools, preschools, where we know that the people that are working there and that are creating curriculum are thinking about our kids' long-term interest, and they're going to teach them and guide them in the values and principles that we as parents hold deeply and dear. In the 13 years that I've lived here, it's been so cool to see your council's work and the village's work to revitalize Tequesta, that now it's just teeming with kids and families. Preschools are full, private school options are full. We're having kids camp this week at our church. We opened registration, and within 24 hours we had 100 kids signed up. Many of our own members weren't able to come to it. So we just feel like having this opportunity to put a school on our campus will provide options for people who live in this community and just give value to our neighborhood and have kids be able to go to preschool. My son has gone to preschool in Tequesta, another place. It's just so cool to have your child there around in the neighborhood. We also think that the things that we're doing are going to enhance the career appeal of our facility, have an opportunity to add 10 or 12 more jobs for that, preschool teachers, directors, things like that. We do know that some people may be worried about Tequesta Drive, main thoroughfare at that time. However, preschool is you're walking your kid into school. We actually have 100 kids right now on our campus. Parents are walking their kids into our church right now. I don't think there's tons of issues. But just want to share as a pastor from my heart, we just want to provide value, and we think that this is another way that we can give value to the families and the parents of Tequesta. I'll leave the details up to Steve Knight.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
You're up.
Thank you. My name is Steve Knight with Alexis Knight Architects. My office is in Boynton Beach Boulevard, 100 Northeast 6th Street. I do reside in the town of Jupiter, your neighbor to the south. So I visit Tequesta quite often, and it's a pleasure being a part of Pastor Mike's passion. And thanks for having me here tonight to explain exactly, technically, what we plan on doing on this particular site. As you know, we're here for a special exception in order to achieve the additional services for educational and actually provide school out of this facility. We are asking and petitioning for a special exception to change a portion of the building from assembly to educational. The overall building is about 29,000 square feet, and there's approximately 8,000 square feet that will be earmarked for educational. And in order to accomplish that, we would have to officially change that use from assembly to educational. And that's the full purpose for us being here tonight. In order to accomplish that, it's a procedure that we're following very carefully, and there's some other things we need to do to the property specifically to support this. For example, there are things on the exterior of the building that we are going to add, change, and modify. For example, we're going to add a playground area for the students. We are also going to change some of the landscaping and the configuration of the drive and parking directly adjacent to the main entrance to the building. There will be some slight modifications to the interior, which we've denoted and indicated in our application. And those include specifically changes possibly in addition to a toddler's restroom. And because of the change, the code mandates that we upgrade this 8,000 square feet to include a fire protection system. So their sprinkler system will be added in order to comply with the current code. Beyond that, there are other portions of the building that will be modified. If you want to scroll through some of the slides, maybe we'll get to some of the floor.
Is there a clicker right there on there?
Well, I'll be darned.
Go ahead and
Well,
get started.
you can add me to the list. I'm having trouble with it too.
Oh, you know why, Lori? I am not plugged it well ago. That's my fault. I knew there was a reason.
Okay. Now, which one? This one? This is an overview of the site. Quite honestly, the footprint of the building is going to stay pretty much the same. There are some side amenities that are going to be modified. But the main focus is the crosshatch area. There's 5,000 square feet, approximately 5,300 square feet on the first floor, and about 3 on the second, which are the target of and will become the educational component. The areas directly adjacent to the entrance and to the right-hand side of the slide will be the proposed playground area. And eventually what's going to happen, there are 3 or 4 other components that we're going to implement as far as changing the overall look and function of the facility. I had mentioned the playground area, but there's also going to be a new courtyard area directly to the left of that, to the sidewalk, which will be used by parishioners and individuals attending worship services. We talked about the outside playground area. And we're going to create a new entrance driveway, as you can see with the arrows there. This is not specifically a drop-off for the preschoolers. This will be used during church services for the drop-off of adults only. Just to clarify, and I know there's always concern about traffic and implications as far as maybe abrupt changes to the traffic patterns. That will not be the case with this new design. Right now, the preschoolers are delivered to the school and escorted to the school by the parents. They park in a parking spot and walk the students into the classroom. There will not be any drop-off on the front side of the church. So that will eliminate the potential of any type of backup onto the adjacent roadway. That's the way it's been functioning, and that's the way it will continue to function regardless of the number of students, and I think we're looking at approximately 75. And just to clarify, currently the facility is operating as Sunday school and only has students coming in and children coming in on Sundays, but now it's going to be Monday through Friday. But not to worry, The surrounding parking and the surrounding drive areas are not going to feel this change. For the most part, when the students are dropped off during the week, there will not be any church services. So that's really not going to abruptly or adversely impact the facility from that standpoint. I had also mentioned some of the other technical aspects as far as the building and the design itself. We propose to enclose the porte cochere and rearrange the drop-off itself. It's shown here. That'll give them a little more square footage for gathering before they go into the services. And then last but not least, I had mentioned that that portion of the building that's now defined as educational will be fully sprinkled, which I think is always a positive from a life safety and safety of occupant standpoint. These are some illustrations of what the exterior is going to look like once the two courtyards, the playground and the courtyard, are completed. The colors will be pleasing. They'll be very comfortable to both those who pass by and look at the church and those who are using the church on Sunday and during the week. That's a view of the playground. And the new enclosed porte cochere and the adult drop-off. The enclosed porte cochere. And we hope to continue working with First Baptist. We certainly appreciate their enthusiasm. We're happy to be part of the team. And we look forward to continue working with the village and First Baptist. If you have any questions, I'm here to answer those.
Thank you. Nilsa, do you want to tell us the conditions of approval now, or do you want us to comment first?
So the first condition of approval that staff is proposing is that the applicant must submit all certifications from the Florida Department of Health and Human Services prior to building permit being issued. That's number one. And then the second condition of approval that staff is proposing is in the event that the applicant decides to implement a drop-off and pick-up car line, the applicant shall apply for a special exception use modification to revise this matter and receive approval from the Village Council.
Okay, thank you, Nilsa. Council?
Nilsa, your last comment about if they choose to change their business model then to a true drop-off line and pickup line where we would have stacking and queuing of cars, they'd have to come back.
Yes.
Okay, thank you. Pastor Mike and Mr. Knight, thank you so much again. And since 1958, you said you've been part of this community, and thank you so much for staying with us. I like the concept. I think it's great to give us more choice for our young children here. My only concern would be, it has been addressed partly by the drop-off. I know you have plenty of ample parking to the east of the property. But two things that come to mind is while we're still bringing 60, call it an average of 60 cars between 8 and 8:45 in the morning, or 8:30 to 9 in the morning, and the same for pickup again. That is also consistent with the school bus times that come in for our middle schoolers. And I know while we're not going to have queuing or stacking, if anybody here has students that have ridden the bus to public school, they can't. There's a scarcity of school bus drivers, and those buses run late all the time. My only concern would be, and I hope that staff continues to look at that, is that the traffic not only would not correspond with anything where our students that are getting on buses that would delay any buses. Doesn't sound like there would be any delay to buses. But a bigger concern to me is your your fellow church, Good Shepherd, do these drop off and pick up and start times correspond with the same time as Good Shepherd does? Because then we've got, an introduction of 60, I'm assuming about 60 cars in the morning and the afternoon at the same time maybe Good Shepherd is doing. And I'm not familiar with what their drop-off and pickup times are. But I just want to make sure that we're looking at that we're not going to have a bottleneck at the corner of North Dover, the Stop and Shop, Good Shepherd, and Seacoast.
Yes, that's,
Seacrest.
yes, with regard to that
Seabrook.
comment, please note this is an application for the use. The next step is further reviews and will go to the Planning and Zoning Board, and then at the end, it will come back to the council for a site plan final approval. So this is the first step on a three-tier process. And with regard specifically about the traffic, the applicant has provided a traffic performance standard provided by Palm Beach County that looks very closely to traffic flow and that type of information.
I did see that, and the TPS it says during no impact to off-peak hours or during peak. Well, I don't know, they didn't define what that is. I just want to make sure it's not, or did they consider it to be the 8:30 to 9 o'clock and the 2:45 to 3:15 time in the afternoon?
That concern will be further addressed when we start the site plan review process.
Okay, awesome, great, thank you. I think it's great.
Sorry, not to interrupt you, Councilmember Painter, but I just want to be clear, because I do think and maybe I'm wrong, one of the things we consider during a special exception is if there is interference with traffic. I mean, I thought this is one of the things we are considering, so it would be appropriate time to talk about it. I just want to clarify that it's not one of our conditions of approval that we're looking at right now with traffic. I think it's relevant, I just want to get your thoughts on
It's
it.
always been a concern, and I think we've addressed that with the report. And I know it was a couple of comments that came from staff, at least a couple of times, so we could really understand the impact and the concern of that. And we address that each time with the same passage that, the students will not be dropped off. They'll be escorted in from the parking spot. And there are a number of access points, a number of curb cuts to the site itself, and it's a very large site with ample parking. It's not like there's only one or two ways in and out, which could cause some congestion at those peak times. So I think it'll kind of spread out the egress and exiting from the site to help minimize that potential. And I think the report from the engineer supports that.
Okay.
to. Okay, thank you.
All right. Well, thank you. Appreciate it. I have a preschooler and I have a soon-to-be preschooler, so I've been through I know the demand. It is very much there. So as far as that goes, I know there's a need for it, so that's not a concern. You're improving an already very aesthetically pleasing building, but anytime you're improving a building to Tequesta, I'm fully in favor of that. That's great. One question, or I guess two questions. So is part of the plan, is there any additional under air square footage being added, or we're just working with the square footage that's already there?
Well, that's a good question. The footprint's not changing.
Okay.
Because we're gonna work within the confines of that covered porte cochere,
Mhm.
but we are enclosing it.
Okay.
So there will be some additional square footage, and as the fire marshal suggested, when the time comes to put the actual working drawings together and do the life safety plan, we'll double check to make sure the paths of egress aren't enhanced to the point where we have a problem because there's additional space inside that we need to pass through to hit that means of egress, so.
Okay.
But it's very small.
Okay.
It's about 500 square feet.
Okay.
But other than that, the footprint's staying the same.
Okay, great, thank you. And then with the summer camp that's currently going on, I know you're saying that it's gonna be the same scenario where their parents are parking and walking kids in, and there's about, did you say about 100 kids right now? Is that what it is?
75.
75 current, or
This
some?
week, yeah, Oh, we have for the camp,
Okay.
yeah, I'm sorry.
Just this week we got the camp, yeah.
And so with that amount of families, no issues parking so far? Okay. All in all, I'm I think it's great. I mean, I love having options for our children to stay in Tequesta, so assuming we meet all the criteria moving forward for the special exception, I love it.
Thank you.
I don't have much to add. I agree. I think the need's there, and I think the church-based schools fill a very valuable role in the community in terms of the values that they teach and the focus on family life, which I think is critical. And I believe, correct me if I'm wrong, but I think the hours for Good Shepherd begin around 8 o'clock for the school as a whole.
They do.
So I don't think that would cause any kind of a conflict in terms of traffic. And whether they're going to, to a preschool in Tequesta, or they're taking the kids somewhere else, there's going to be traffic on the road anyways. So I really don't see that as I understand the concern, but I don't believe that would actually be an issue. So, I mean, I'm all in favor. The only thing I would comment on is a comment that the mayor made earlier, which is, it's nice, it would be nice if everything in the village is in white and gray. So something to think about in terms of perhaps as you're doing this work, maybe looking at color schemes that might further enhance the ambiance and the look of the facility.
Okay, where do I want to start? I have a couple of things. I love that the Good Shepherd School was brought up, and I've spoken to the principal / headmaster over there to get their feedback as well, because obviously they're in the same business essentially. They are supportive. Knowing their schedule as well, my children went there years and years ago. I think you need to be realistic too on when you're talking about preschool kids with the need between this northern area. I think it's doable for many, many years. But I think you need to be realistic that you might have an earlier dismissal if you're doing like 3-year-olds, even 4-year-olds. You might have that half-day option as well as the full-day option to 3. So just something to think about in case it pops up in the future after you get started, maybe after a year, and you decide to take that on. You might need to consider that in your special exception ask, that you might be having those X amount of cars coming out lunchtime or so. Secondly, the change of the entryway, I'm fine with it, but again, this is on you to think about. I totally understand that realistically, most parents of little kids do like to park and walk their child up to class. It is such a heartfelt thing, and in Tequesta, you do get, because we are so safe, we do get that option to walk our children up to campus, not like at public school where they literally shut you off at the sidewalk. But we do live in Florida, so I want you to consider rainy day options. So Good Shepherd, they have that front door is right there, so on those rainy days, cars do pull up and they have a system to get the kid with a large umbrella. First Pres as well has an outdoor hallway, so on rainy days, there's a realistic option on how to manage a car line on those days that weather is occurring. My only other thing I really wanted to express now that you are actually here, because I don't go to your church, I'm sorry. I don't love the gray, and I never understood where that came from when you guys painted. I know it wasn't you, but when that church was painted, the solid gray. I always think churches should be welcoming and soft and lightening, and you guys have that beautiful stained glass wall. So if you're gonna redo this, it's kind of confusing in the images. Are we softening parts of the gray and keeping the gray columns, or is it staying?
We haven't really thought about it, honestly.
I'm strongly gonna suggest you guys really think about breaking up the gray, maybe keep the gray bricks, but then softening the wall color, especially if you're gonna be having children. And I'm a big advocate in our public schools to get color and art on the walls, something that doesn't look like prison walls. And so if we have children, something softer might make them feel happier, and adding some landscape, because that's really good for them as well, like in that playground area. Some shade, natural shade, and anything that they can get their hands on plant-wise. Other than that, I think it's great. I think you're adding a good use to our Tequesta area. Really, my feedback just came down to considering the realisticness of having to use a car line on those weather days, and knowing that you might have to adapt your schedule based on the needs, especially if you start accepting like VPK and stuff. Yeah, that's it.
All right, I just have one more thing to add. So, as part of the criteria we consider for special exceptions, I think I'm satisfied with the answers for all of them except for the need for the neighborhood. I have a young child. To me, I think it was very difficult finding childcare in the area. So I personally think there's a need, but was there any study done that there is in fact a need in the area? Or, I mean, even in the backup, like there's no support letters from parents or residents. I know we have public notice letters that go out to the nearby community, and I personally have not received any comments or concerns or anyone against this, but to me, the need wasn't really justified. I just want to see, do you have anything? You touched on a little bit when you spoke, but was anything technically done to determine the need?
We don't have formal data, but just anecdotally, I live in Tequesta, neighbors, they want to stay here instead of driving over the bridge or going to wherever their kids are, they'd rather come to us. And we have membership in our church. We have lots, probably 100 kids from birth through 5th grade. So we have a lot of people in our church that we willing to do that as well.
Okay, so, and maybe it's more a staff thing next time, like even if it's letters of support or something, I think, we need to justify the criteria, and that one was just lacking for me a little bit. So, all right, any other council comments or questions?
No, Mayor.
No? Okay, I'll open it for public comment. No? All right, with that, can I get a motion? Oh, is there a
Yeah, we did have one.
Come on up.
Sorry, first time at a town hall meeting. My name's Reed Shank. Live over off of River Pines Court, which is right around the Tequesta Pines area, so about a mile away. My family moved here about 6 years ago into the neighborhood. I have 3 kids, 10, 8, a 3-year-old. So when I heard and found out through the church community that there was potential for this preschool coming in, we were like all in. My kids do it, myself, my family, and kids do attend the church. My kids have been going to the summer camp this past week. My wife volunteers there, so we're all in with the church. And so for us, for my older 2 kids who both went through preschool in the area, we had to drive all the way over to Oceanside and Treetop, which you think it's 6 miles away, but with a lot of the traffic at that time of the morning, it can be a very painful drive for my wife primarily, since I'm working at that time. So for us, this would be absolutely huge for our 3-year-old as a local option where we would we probably wouldn't even take advantage of the parking. We would just be walking right down Riverside Drive and Tequesta Drive over to the school. We have other friends and family in the area with similar age kids that I think would probably do the same. So we'll definitely try to support as we can with support letters for Pastor Mike and John and the rest of the church community. But for us, this would be a huge welcome thing for the neighborhood. So that's it. Thanks.
Thank you for your comments.
Thank you very much.
Any other public comment? No? All right, can I get a motion?
Motion to approve.
Second. All in favor?
Aye.
All right, moving on, agenda item 10, site plan modification 3-23 for 300 Beach Road.
Mayor, for agenda number 10, I would now ask the council to provide any ex parte communication disclosures that they may need to give at this time, whether any site visits were completed or if there were any discussions with the applicant.
I have none. I have visited the site, but it was solo. No one else was there. I just wanted to get lay the ground a little bit.
None.
None other than being on the beach looking at it.
Okay,
Nothing to disclose.
very good.
I'm sorry, just for clarity, the previous motion was also to approve with the suggested conditions?
Yes.
Yes.
Do we need to vote on that
Please.
again formally, or it's with the
With
2
her.
conditions of,
Yeah.
okay. Sorry, back up. 9, can I get a condition to approve with the 2 conditions of approval? Do you want to read them again, Nilsa, just so we have it?
I think, well, they've been read in the record. Do we need to?
Okay. If you don't think we need to.
Very good.
It's
I'll make a
up to you.
motion.
You're-
Lori's got
Okay.
them, she's got them, so if you just want to
Lori's
read
got 'em.
in with, she's already got the conditions.
You're good?
I'll
Okay.
make a motion to approve with the 2 specified conditions that were referenced earlier by Nelson Zacharias.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Thank you, Nilsa.
So, Okay. Madam Mayor, council members, the application in front of you is from 300 Beach Road developer for a site plan modification to relocate the previously approved condominium building approximately 55 feet westward and revise the floor plan of the second floor. This application also includes a revised landscape plan. As the staff report included, this application, the original application was approved last year on October 13, 2022. And that development approval included a condition. The condition was that the applicant must provide to the village with a letter of map revision, LOMAR, from the Federal Emergency Management Agency, FEMA. So the letter is attached to the staff report and is part of the package. So, and the applicant is here for a presentation.
Thank you.
Good evening, council members and mayor and vice mayor. George Gentile, representing Fontainebleau, who is the developer of the project. As Nilsa indicated, we're here for a revision of just the relocation of the building, and we had to revise the second floor because the building took out the second floor towards the west, and you'll see that in a minute. But everything else is remaining the same in regards to architectural that you approved, and there was just some minor modifications to the landscape. And we did remove the synthetic turf that we had on the project. It will be real turf. So I just want to make sure you all know that. So the request again is the site plan modification that changes the portion of the approved building, and as Nilsa said, it's about a 55-foot move to the west. And the benefits in that you'll see in a minute. It does provide more visibility and less restriction to the neighbors, which we have a neighbor to the north, which I think is great. The request is made because of the FEMA letter. We finally got our LOMAR, which is our letter of map revision, and they had changed some of the criteria, and we had to get the building into the elevation that was required by that map revision, and that's why we're here. So the property was currently exists as it was. We had 27 units. And then we came back in and we approved for those council members who were not here then. We reduced by 1 unit, so we're down to 26 units. And it's new construction, which meets all of the new construction requirements. As you all know, that we've gone through some major revisions to the building issues regarding coastal properties because of the Miami situation. The building was 55 years old that was there, and really was going to have some issues as well. So this is the site. The island house is to the north. The Regency condominiums is to the south, and of course you know that we are in the process with that as called 250 Beach Road. And then you can see the Ocean Towers. And on the west side, there is additional CMIS condos, Ocean Villas, and the Island House Southwest. This is the approved site plan that you approved in October. And if you watch closely, I think this will work. If you watch the gray building in the middle, you will see that it moves to the front. Okay? And then let me just go back so that you can see. As you know, we had there's 2 private pools and a full condominium pool in the ocean side, but those pools that were in the front on the second floor is the main modification, and again they were moved to the back. So this pushes the building. The footprint of the bottom floor stays the same. It didn't move. It's just the tower. The top portion moved so that you can see it there. This is another one. This is just so you see it in black and white. I know you don't like black and white, but this this just gives you a little bit a better picture of it. So anyway, I'm not going to go through all the statistics unless some of the other new council members would like me to. But again, it's R3 multifamily. 2.6 acres. We meet all your requirements. We provided open space at 49.1%. Again, none of that is changing. The density stays the same. And my clickers, there it goes. And so, again, this is a rendering of the building that we provided you. It's, again, you almost can't tell the difference in the elevation front. I won't go through that. The project highlights are the same. We meet all the provisions of the code. And the landscape was changed slightly, as Nilsa indicated. Let me go back. The landscape is a coastal hammock type landscape, and we've worked very hard previously. DS Boca was our landscape architects on this project, and they did a tremendous job with it, with your staff, also with Steve Parker, working with us on it. So, I think my last slide, if I can get it to come up. Okay. Of course, we do not require any variances, even for the move of the building. We meet all the we still meet and exceed all the setbacks, and we received a 5-0 approval from your planning commission, and we would ask for your consideration in approving this tonight, so we can get on with building, because the building permits are ready to go in. So, thank you. I'll answer any questions.
Thank you, George. Council?
I have none. I have none. It's moving in the right 55 feet in the right direction, so we're good.
I believe there was a comment made by the council when we came in October about that.
Might have been
You miss it.
Most of us.
I think the fact that you're able to do it within the existing footprint and that nothing changed it was important. So yes, it looks good.
Yeah, I can't believe I'm gonna say this, but I'm happy with it. So
Great, well, we
you can
appreciate
tell
it.
your
Thank you.
client, I am actually happy
Well,
with it.
they're here.
But I am a fan. Like, I never understood why people on the river even build these houses right on the river. I'm much more open to enjoying your backyard and having more open space. And the fact that they're on the ocean
Great.
water, I think it's much smarter
Great.
for our future Tequesta residents and their safety.
I think it shows council was on the right track when we were trying to get these buildings moved back. We did not win that one, but it worked out in the end, so I don't care how we got there. I'm glad that the building's being moved. I did just have a quick question on the agency approvals. I'm not clear. Do we not need anything from Durham? It says NA, so I wasn't sure. Okay.
What? Yeah, it'll be in the building permit process, particularly for the sea turtle protection and the lighting, I think. And if I can, I know that your building official's here, but yeah, that's done at the building permit time. And we received your phenomenal little packages, and my client has 2 of them. We'll be taking them back and make sure that we work very diligently to meet the new ordinance.
Must comply.
Yes, we will comply. Did you need to say anything? Okay.
I'm here if you have any questions.
And George, that's why I love that you follow what we're doing, so that way you can help your clients meet what we are doing for our village.
And then I know like DEP wasn't listed on that list. I know there was a comment on the landscape plan, said it's pending DEP approval.
So
I mean, I'm sure you're tracking it, but
Absolutely.
there were
So
some gaps for me, so I just want to make
When
sure.
they come forth for building permit, we have a list of boxes. They have to check all those boxes before we issue the building permits. They include the elevation of the building, the flood zone, and all that requirements.
Okay.
So that's what we do.
Okay, great. And then my very last question on the landscape comments, I wasn't clear. It was number 7. It said recommend proposing alternative ground cover for beach sunflower, yada yada. It said they would perform poorly at sea glass, and many have had to be replaced. The response there, I wasn't sure. It didn't really address that comment. I felt like, are you gonna propose a different?
We will work with Steve on that selection when we get down to that level of construction. That beach sunflower, unfortunately, I think that at the Sea Glass project, it was in a location where when we got a lot of the northeasters, we had some really high intense storms in that location, and where it was on that project, it was not really in a good location. We actually had issues along that whole backside. Everybody did. And this is, I think, going to be a little bit better protected. So, but we'll work with him. We'll certainly talk to him about it, and if we need to do anything else, or with your other consultant. I know that you have two of them that we work with, so.
Okay.
Thanks.
Thank you.
Yep.
Molly, since you brought that up, George, because I walked back behind Sea Glass Sign a few weeks ago, have they remediated that issue along the backside?
Yeah, I believe so. Richard Seaglass has been, yes,
Okay.
it has,
Okay.
yes.
All right,
Yep.
thanks.
Yep.
Okay, thank you. Any public comment?
None? Wow.
There's no conditions on approval on this one, correct? Okay. Can I get a motion?
Motion to approve.
Second?
All in favor?
Aye.
Thank you all.
Thank you, George.
Thank
Have a good
you.
evening.
All right, moving on, agenda item 11, ordinance number 08-23, first reading of changing the definition for veterinary office. Dylan,
Nothing for this?
you're not gonna read it like you
Oh,
does?
excuse
Come
me.
on, I'm waiting for it.
That's so true.
Where are you at?
My apologies. Mayor, this is ordinance number 0823. It's the first reading. An ordinance of the Village Council of the Village of Tequesta, Florida, amending the Village Code of Ordinances at Chapter 78 zoning, at Section 78-4 definitions, to revise the definition of the term veterinary office, providing that each and every other section and subsection of Chapter 78 zoning shall remain in full force and effect as previously adopted, providing a conflicts clause, a severability clause, and authority to codify, providing an effective date, and for other purposes.
Thank you. Any council comments or questions?
Nope.
Done here.
Any public comment? Can I get a motion?
Motion to approve.
Second?
All in favor?
Aye.
Agenda item 12, ordinance number 04-23, which is a first reading to adopt our new sea turtle protection plan.
Lynn Britt for the Building Department. Good evening,
read
Madam.
them first?
Oh, sorry, you go ahead.
Don't want to rob me of my
Sorry, I
ordinance
don't know
reading.
about that portion.
I just got it. Mayor, this is an ordinance of the Village Council of the Village of Tequesta, Florida, amending the Village Code of Ordinances at Chapter 10 Animals, Article 3 Sea Turtle Protection, by repealing this article in its entirety and adopting a new Article 3 Sea Turtle Protection, with findings of fact, definitions, regulations, and enforcement provisions that are consistent with the State of Florida Model Sea Turtle Protection Ordinance and the Palm Beach County Sea Turtle Protection Ordinance, providing that each and every other section and subsection of Chapter 10 Animals shall remain in full force and effect, as previously adopted, providing for conflict severability, authority to codify, effective date, and for other purposes.
Thank you. All right.
Lynn Britt for the Building Department. Good evening, Madam Mayor and Village Council. So item number 12 before you is an updated seed protection ordinance that was previously brought before council in a workshop on May 1st. And it's based on the Florida State Model Ordinance. Village Council's comments were incorporated into the draft, which was brought before the LPA on June 15th. The LPA requested two changes. One, to bring the definitions section closer to the top of the code section. And secondly, to have the ordinance apply only to the R3 district, not the whole of the village. With those two changes, the LPA recommended the ordinance for approval. And to recap, the main differences between the current code and the new code are that the prior code applied to the beachfront only, whereas the new code applies to the entire R3 district that can potentially be seen from the beach. The new code requires a sea turtle protection plan not only for new construction, but also for new glass windows, glass doors, and replacement lighting. The new code also incorporates the Florida Fish and Wildlife Conservation Commission updated lighting requirements that's included also in the state model code. The building department, as Manager Allen said earlier, has met with all but 4 of the Beach Road HOAs to discuss the new ordinance and provide them with an opportunity to ask questions. Educational material has also been provided, and accordingly, the draft is before you for first reading, and I'm here to answer any questions you may have.
Thank you. Council?
No, nothing. I have no questions.
And the fines and penalties, I asked this last time, I could not find, I didn't write down an answer. Are there any defined fines and penalties? How are we handling that?
Yes, the fines go to the code enforcement process. So the fine for the first offense is up to $250 per day, and for second offense up to $500 per day.
Okay, so it's defined roughly.
Just like a
Okay.
criminal process, yes.
Thank you for the reminder, because I couldn't find that. All right, and Lynn, thank you for your hard work. I know this project morphed into a much bigger project than we thought when we
You're very
started down
welcome.
this road, and I really appreciate the community outreach too. It's gonna be really helpful for those, the condo HOAs to understand the new change. So thank you for your hard work on that one. All right, any public comment? Nope. Can I get a motion?
So moved.
Second?
All in favor?
Aye.
Okay, thank you.
Agenda item 13, consider approval of the Village of Tequesta's emergency reserve policy. Jeff?
Good evening, Mayor, Vice Mayor, Council. It's a pleasure to be here. I'm here today to kind of codify or have action taken upon a reserve policy action, or a reserve policy. This allows us to react to storms and the things that come along that require us to go. So it requires us to keep some money in reserves so that we're ready to adopt or to react and provide services. I just got a couple of quick slides here that just kind of walks through the policy. They're kind of dual purpose, so some of these you'll see. But you'll see that we started out with a 2-month reserve. That's basically the standard for anywhere other than hurricane areas, if you ask me. So the 3-month gives us some money, quick operating money, so we can get right on it. So you just see the history of our amounts. We're a little short, projected to be this year, at the end of the year, but that remains to be seen because there's been a lot of changes in the economy, and quite frankly, I'm making a little more money on our investments, which excites me. Here's the building. Building, we're looking at a 50%, and that's because people pay up front for their permits, and then there's a long tail of work that has to be done before they're done, so that they have the money available if something bad happens to be able to do the long tail of the work after they get the money. The water fund is a little different because there's all sorts of things going into it, but you really get down to your ending estimated unrestricted net position. That's what you want to see, and that's the money available to, or the funds available to use. You can see that we're recommending 17% because they're not as heavily staff related and things like that. There's a lot of infrastructure and capital, so 17% isn't a bad choice there. And so it looks at 23, that'd be $1.1 million for that fund. The stormwater fund is smaller yet, and this one kind of goes for what happens if we do leave the rate stable, what happens if we increase it. So you'll see that they're running a little tight. The stormwater fund is running a little tight. So at the end of '24, we're estimating $722 remaining over the reserve balance, or $26,000. So the increase is really fairly small. You'll see 519, 545. And with that, that's my presentation.
And just a quick note, this is something we've been working on. What started this process, we've been working on a 2-month process, 2-month emergency fund. Through council's guidance and vision, we were trying to get to 3-month. As you can see, we're really close. But part of that, we've always gotten questions: what are our other enterprise funds and our building funds supposed to be? So we memorialize that in this emergency fund too. So that way, we have a target. When we're all said, gone, the next group will be targeting that same, same money, and we don't fall below those targets. And so I think Jeff's done a good job of putting that all together and make sure we memorialize that so we have targets in the future.
Okay, thank you. Council?
One question, Jeff. In the past, the councils had indicated they wanted to have $1 million in emergency reserve fund set aside, $500,000 underwater, $500,000 under the village. So what I took from this is you're taking it a step further, setting up a policy, establishing guidelines to actually establish what you think are the necessary reserves, which translates into a higher number on both sides of the equation. Is that
Yes, sir.
a quick
That-
summation?
That's basically what I'm saying, yes,
So
sir.
we still have our emergency fund that has been set aside, $500,000 out of the general fund plus $500,000 out of the water fund for emergency fund. This is the 3-month operating expenditure. So usually that emergency fund, when it was set up by council originally, was for if we have we have a significant storm to help us pay for deductibles, and you guys heard a whole presentation on that. And then, the 3-month operating, if something, hits the fan with the economy, we're still able to pay employees for 3 months and keep operating. So there's two different things that we have. So this 3-month operating is on top of the emergency fund that we
Okay,
have.
that's, so this is, okay, in addition to.
Yeah, in addition
All
to.
right,
Yep.
okay.
Two quick questions, and I was trying to digest those slides. It looks like, so we're, with the suggested percentages on the policy, we're there with everything except the general fund, but we expect to be there next year with the general fund?
And projected wise, when we projected that, we were projected to be $148,000 short at the end of this year. I mean, we'll obviously see how that, projects out this year, but at the end of '22, I think that slide, at the end of '22, we're still short of that 3-month operating at it'd be $148,000 projected in this year. The audited numbers is the '22 numbers. We were $211,000 short of 3 months. That was the audited numbers. We feel like, we'll see how '23 works out. I know you guys have seen our investment report for this quarter. We're trending, higher than that, so we feel like, hopefully we'll beat that projection.
And the other ones, we already meet the 17%?
The stormwater fund is the one that's
The building
struggling.
fund.
And then, yeah, there's no staffing and no things other than paying for the garbage, so we're not attaching a reserve policy or a reserve
Right.
amount to that.
Right.
But that one's struggling a little bit too.
Okay. And then, for the unassigned reserve, there's a comment that says the budgeted amount is not considered available for appropriation. Is there a process in place to go with this policy that if we would have to appropriate funds from that? I mean, I know we have an appropriation process now, but is it gonna be the same as it is now? Or if we do have to touch those funds, is there like a checks and balance process to make sure it's, everyone's on board with it and everyone knows about it?
The policy defines a process whereby if we have to use the reserve funds, we'll be telling you that we've used them. We'll be giving you
saw
up to
that,
a
yeah.
5-year plan to get us back to where we want to be. And so we'll have spent quite a lot of time getting ready to tell you what's going on and tell you how we're going to fix it. So yes, we can still tap the money when we need to.
At your discretion? It
Well, no,
wouldn't
it's
come to
at
Depending on what
council?
the
your
threshold
discretion.
is.
Right, okay, so
Yeah.
we would still see it.
Yeah.
We still
So
have to
that
go through our
process would
normal
be-
processes that we would spend now. So if it, obviously, if we're gonna spend that money, if it's an emergency situation, there's still policies that we have to follow. And so mostly council will be, have to be the authority for those operating expenses. Those
Okay.
17% or 3-month operating.
Okay, yeah, thanks for clarifying, because I did the recovery and that reporting, that, I read that and it kind of got mixed up and wasn't sure about that front part, so, okay, I'm good with it. All right, any public comment? Can I get a motion?
So moved.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Agenda item 14, resolution number 13-23, which is a resolution to adopt the refuse recycling and yard waste collection rates.
I do not have a presentation for this. However, this is contractual, our agreement, so that we will increase their rates, either CPI or 3.5%, whichever is less. And in this case, their CPA is around 5-something. And then this is the third year that we've had contractually to increase. Last year, '23, they came to us with a hardship case that's in their clause. You granted them 13.3% or 13.08% over the 3.5%, for a total of 13.5, a little over 13.5. That was $22 a year. This 3.5% will be about $6.50 a year, and it'll put us at $191.88 a year for our trash recycling and yard waste. So that's where we are.
Okay, thank you. Any questions, comments?
Just one question for the manager. I know we've had some conversations with them about going to the automated service. Do we have any further update on where they stand with that?
So yeah, we were really trying to tee it off before, we got to this point, obviously with the hopes of extending our agreement long-term. So we're not in a situation like some of the neighboring communities have been in. Due to the timing of this, when we start having those conversations, is best because we have to report, our increased millage rate. But the short answer, or we'll say long answer now that I've talked for a little bit, is that we are probably September teeing off a workshop with them to look at automation, what those costs will be in the future. But, obviously, hopefully to be able to extend that contract beyond 2025. So that this contract is up in a little over 2 years. And if, long and short of it, if we were to go out for bid, a new company, it would take them more than 2 years just to start and order new equipment. So it behooves us to move forward with trying to negotiate a longer term contract now than waiting a year out. And so come September, my hope is, depending on the weight of the agenda, is to have them in September.
Because with automation, it simplifies the recycling process as well, which I think people would welcome, so.
Yeah.
Okay.
There's challenges that come with that, but I think Waste Management has been doing that for some time now. I think Jupiter is still working through some of those issues, but I think there's some solutions, and so in an ideal world it's better, but we will have challenges with it. It won't be just overall better process for everybody. So.
Well, if they can use Jupiter as a guinea pig and work those things out, people will come to us.
That's right.
Hey, I'm okay with that.
Yeah.
So, okay, thanks.
Any other council comment? Okay, any public comment? Can I get a motion?
Motion to approve.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Okay, where am I? Agenda item 15, consider approval of a contract between the Village of Tequesta and the Bureau of Land Management.
Thank you, Mayor. This contractor is with the Bureau of Land Management. They would like to contract the Tequesta police officers to patrol and enforce Palm Beach County and Florida laws within the Jupiter Inlet Lighthouse natural area. Enforcement will be an extra detail paid by the Bureau of Land Management. The duration of the contract is for 5 years and totals $107,000, no cost to the village. What's unique, as you all know, we had a 3-year contract. With this particular contract, they're also going to give us $20,000 to be able to purchase marine vests for our officers out in the waterway. So other than that, everything almost stayed the same. Increase the officers per hour from $40 to $60 an hour for years 1 through 4, and then the 5th year at $65 an hour. And by the 5th year, we increased to $10 an hour for an admin fee. And that's all I have.
Thank you. Council?
No comments?
No comments.
Just one question. Where do we stand on the dockage space at the Bureau property versus the condo?
They're still in the middle of it. I think it's going to be able for them to find the funds to put it there, which will help us out tremendously. They should start moving. I know Jeremy and I talked about it in close proximity to put some of the rocks out there in the area, which is going to help out. But as far as we're concerned, they're still moving towards putting a dock out there.
Okay. So hopefully before, sometime within the reasonable future, we could expect.
I would hope so, but I'm not gonna.
So just a quick.
A hope and a prayer?
I can help a little bit. I know the mayor and I went to, we'll say a ceremony or an event that they had. Their timeline is not published yet, but they hope that the permits will be arriving September or October. Intend to put the contract out for bid in January with the intent of construction beginning in late April. And so part of that permitting process, I do believe that it's all part of that. And so, but it hasn't been fully vetted yet. So that's why I think there's some hesitation there where, we feel like we're still doing that and it's going through, and we will keep pursuing that. And I think they've been a super great partner with us through this time. And so, to answer your question, we believe it's still moving forward, but it's nothing's for certain.
I agree. We love these guys. One of the reasons I asked that was because I know when he originally came in, when Peter came in and talked to us, there was some question about some of the funding that they would need to actually make that dock available to us. And so I guess what I was getting at is, do they have some level of confidence, aside from the permitting process, that they're going to have the funding necessary?
So, you know, the conversation we've had is they're gonna be able to fund their dock, their portion, that's what their intent is, and then we may be responsible for the lift of the boat, which, you know, preliminary, we would talk about, you know, some special law enforcement funds to help pay for that, but, I mean, when we get to that point, we will have a proposal for council to consider. So.
All right, excellent. Thank you, gentlemen.
Thank you. Anything else? No? All right, any public comment?
Just wondering, what kind of...
Marcia, can you come up to the podium and say your name and address?
Marcia Nielsen, 94 Beachwear. Just wanted to ask us, what kind of calls do you get? Like, what are the...
Drinking in public, kids going down the sand dune.
Jumping off the bridge.
Jumping off the bridge. Marijuana usage, you know, a lot of, like this orderly person type calls. What's that? Dogs, yeah, dogs. They're not supposed to be dogs on in the area of that as well.
Wake in the no wake zone, probably.
Nothing big.
Not much?
Yeah, not too much of that, honestly.
So I was the only one?
And to be honest, I mean, our guys and gals have done a great job, because if you all remember, what happened was a video went viral with kids going down the sand dune and just the erosion of it. So when on the onset, we actually put a lot of officers out there, and we kind of curtailed that a lot from what it was to where it is now. So now it's just a matter of going out there and kind of re-educating them a little bit, but like Kurt said, it's dogs mostly that we get called now, and just kids, just being kids.
So they come in by boat.
Yep.
Okay, any other public comment? Okay, can you come up and state your name and your address, please?
Hello, I'm George Williams. I've been a resident of Tequesta for over 20 years. I love it here. By coincidence, I live at 400 Beach Road, which is just north of this building that you were talking about, a couple of buildings north of that, in Tequesta Towers. The reason I am here this evening is because at age 82, there are some things I can still do, and one of those things is every other day at low tide, I'm out there jogging on the beach. And this is anecdotal, of course, and the reason I'm getting up at this point in time is because I have spoken to one of the police officers about this, and I will say, since I've been an adult, I've never lived in a place where I have felt as comfortable and safe and appreciative of the police department that we have in Tequesta. I'm serious about that. There is this issue on the beach, though, that is troubling to me. At 82, I can still jog on the beach. And every other day at low tide, I jog from Tequesta Towers down to the inlet, up past Sea Glass, and then back to Tequesta Towers. Without fail, every day I am accosted by dogs on the beach. And anecdotal, yes, but 9 out of 10 dogs are never, they are never on a leash. And invariably also, they come raging down the beach, they jump up at me, they jump up at me, they scratch me. They are all variations of unpleasant, but I understand that the Tequesta Police Department has jurisdiction over the beach in that area. Is that correct?
Certain areas, we have to know exactly.
Well, I'm pretty specific. From the jetty to Sea Glass, that's where I run. And invariably, of course, and I'm sorry, I love dogs, but if you're jogging, they don't like you. And we have a leash law, and it seems that no one follows the rules. So I just appreciate some comment as to what can be done about it. I have a suggestion, actually. And I know how busy the police are, and I appreciate you, and this is minor, of course, but I'd like to make a suggestion that once a week, a police officer, either from, say, 8
Sir,
o'clock to 9
sir.
o'clock in the morning,
Sir, can I
or
interrupt you for
late
a
in the
second?
day.
Your time is up. Public has 3 minutes to speak. I really
Okay.
appreciate you bringing your concerns. Chief, would you mind getting this gentleman's contact info? And you guys can talk and we can absolutely address your concerns. I'd appreciate if you could do that. Thank you.
Thank you, sir.
Okay, any other public comment? Can I get a motion?
I have a quick question.
Sure.
Because it actually just got brought up and it popped in my head. So a lot of our youth, especially right now, they're in a fishing tournament with the River Center, and they're finding little nooks to fish on. So Cato's Bridge, that's Jupiter, but that's right next to where you guys are gonna be getting jurisdiction. Is that gonna be both parties then have jurisdiction? Like,
So on the BLM side, we do have jurisdiction, but as you
Right.
know, I'm sure you know, Cato's, we found out when we went back and looked at the village map and what it actually states in the ordinance, it's actually Jupiter. So the kids jumping in that particular area, that's actually Jupiter's jurisdiction, that's not ours.
okay.
But,
So it's still,
let's-
so
but
it's still complicated and
it
gray
is, but
area.
honestly, when our guys and gals are out in the boat, if they see the kids, they still say, hey,
Okay.
cut it out, because most of the kids, they're good kids. It's a lot of juveniles that come down there will say, if we see them out there, we'll stop. Oftentimes Jupiter will still ask us for help and saying, hey, we don't have anyone to send, can you all just, tell them to get off the grid, so.
So it's still a mixed area. Okay, just curious.
All right, can I get a motion?
So move.
Second?
All in favor? Aye. Right, agenda item 16, resolution number 14-23, which is adopting revised schedule of fees for our water services.
Marjorie Craig, Utilities Director. In this agenda, I'm bringing back the revised schedule of fees and charges as directed. And this resolution is a modification of the resolution brought before you in 2021, which was Resolution 19-21. And this resolution is based on the workshop that was provided in February of this year, where Rev Tellis, our financial consultant, brought a presentation before you, and then we came back before you in May to request direction. So the rate resolution under consideration incorporates that direction. It's a 5% base rate recalibration adjustment, and it recognizes the effects of the recent high inflation on the cost of operations that we've experienced over the last year, 18 months, maybe even 2 years, and maintaining the previously approved 3.5% rate increase, and then maintaining that 3.5 rate adjustment over the next 5 fiscal years, and that's shown in Exhibit A. And then it introduces a monthly capital improvement charge of $10 per equivalent residential connection. And this is based on a 20-year financial model, which is proposed to be in effect for the next 20 years. The capital improvement charge is proposed to be in effect for the next 20 years, which is also the life of the state revolving loans that we will have for our capital projects. So we have a 20-year capital plan that is tied to the financial plan. And it's always hard to make these types of rate adjustments. But as you know, these capital projects are very, very important to the village, and things that have been put off, we must continue to move the ball forward to improve our infrastructure, and really appreciate your support. I've got Rob Ori with me. If you have any questions, I've attached the rate presentation, which you've seen before, but it doesn't hurt to go through anything again that you'd like to see. I've got the resolution, legal's reviewed with Exhibit A, and then behind the presentation is also a comparison that was very painful to do of the Exhibit A from 2021 and 2023. So beyond just the regular rate adjustments, we reviewed all rates and fees, and we trued them up to cost recovery. And there were also some rates and fees that we did not increase because we were fine with those. But if you have any questions, I also have one of our long-term, over 30 years, engineers that have been doing work for the village, Tom Jensen, and as I mentioned, Rob Rory, our financial consultant. Do you have any questions?
Okay, thanks, Marjorie. Council?
Thank you, Marjorie. I know that staff's put a lot of time into this. We did have a lengthy discussion prior to this. This is the one where I don't think we can continue to kick the water can down the road. To speak in a little bit of cliches, and as much as it hurts to see that the average use for our water of the 6,000 gallons is, somebody's going to experience $157, over $157 a year increase, but we have no choice. We have no water, we have a crisis on our hands. So while this is painful, I acknowledge it. Never would I ever want to increase something so rapidly, so egregiously, but I really don't see another choice, and I trust staff and the work you've put into it, and the consultants and the folks that have been with us, but I think we've kicked the water can down the road long enough, and it hurts, but I don't see any other way around it. So I do not want to kick it down the road. I'm not going to vote to kick it down the road again, so I will vote for this increase.
Appreciate that.
I echo Rick's sentiments, and thank you so much for your hard work with this. I know it's been a lot of work, and we really appreciate it.
And I would say the same. I mean, water's life, and to Rick's point, you know, there is an increase in cost here, but quite honestly, $13 for most people, it's a pizza once a month. It's a couple of trips to the coffee shop. So when you actually look at it in those terms, it's not that significant. And like I said, water is essential. Most people spend more on their cable bills every month than we're asking them to spend on their water bill. So to me, there's no issue here at all.
Mm-hmm.
It's an absolute necessity, and it's something we've got to do.
I think everything's been said. I was very vocal last time. I'm not a big fan of add more fees to our residents, but I will tell our residents, I do spend time in other towns. I also spend time out in the country towns, and they don't have infrastructure like we have, and so I know what it's like to stay in a camper with no water and no electric. It's not lovely. So having these infrastructure projects be maintained, which unfortunately it wasn't, not anyone in this room's fault, I will have to, I'll tell the residents it's very important. It's something you don't see, and it's not easy, but we are going to have to do this. And in the long run, you're going to appreciate it, because some of the other towns down south of us are not keeping up either, and it's a mess, and it's hard to financially catch up. If we can do this in this kind of a small increment, we should start it. And then that way we are going forward prepared and we're on top of it, rather than trying to catch up with some crazy emergency plan.
Yeah.
So as much as I wasn't loving it, again, going outside our little bubble and seeing how blessed we are, but we are definitely taking care of our infrastructure, which is what keeps our quality of life and our town beautiful. So
thank you.
I'm going to be in favor of going forward.
Okay, just one quick question on the the monthly capital charge. Is it going to be the flat rate on the chart? Because I kind of got confused, because you talk about it's per ERC, which is 350 gallons a day, and then if you do the average household, you said it's 6,000 gallons, so that would be less than $10. So is that fluctuating, or is that a flat rate per the fee? The way it reads, it just isn't clear.
So an ERC basically is Rob, you may have to come save me in case I'm not explaining this correctly, but an ERC is basically an average water use customer of 6,000 gallons per day, and it would be about the $10 per.
Rob Ory, principal with Grass House. Good to see you tonight. It would be a flat charge per ERC, and basically think of the single-family household is $10. The ERC fluctuates by meter size. At 1 inch, I believe it'd be 2.5 times. It follows the same ERC criteria as your capacity fees, your impact type fees, and that's how it be based. So it goes with that. It doesn't look at your flow and say divide by 350. It's really based more on a meter size basis.
Right, so that's gonna be a fixed rate, so
Yes.
the rates, okay, so
It
I
doesn't-
think I
it
got
doesn't-
lost
it
in language on
doesn't
the
flow.
cover letter,
Yeah.
which the cover letter was great, but I was looking at the average, and I was like, oh, are we doing the math, and it's gonna fluctuate, so that's a flat
I
rate.
think your perception is right, $10 flat.
Okay, so I just wanna make sure that's clear, and then what was the, and I apologize if we talked about this during our workshops, but there was something on here, it's G, the capital reservation monthly fee, what's that chart?
So I see why you might be confused by the 350. That's actually just the definition in the ordinance, like in the city code, but in the exhibit, it is defined by the meter size. So, and then, are you talking about the development, or the capacity fee? Is that what you're?
Yeah, the capacity reservation monthly fee per ERC, what is that? Is that,
So that is for water capacity for a developer. That's unrelated to this.
unrelated, okay, got it,
Unrelated.
okay. And then, yeah, overall, it's a tough pill to swallow.
It is.
I do think this is a significant increase. I mean, we're talking a $10 every single month on top of the additional increased fees. What we're increasing a lot next year and then drop back down to 3.5. I think it's significant, especially in light of everything else that's being raised. So, but I do agree. I mean, it's just we can't not make this decision and like kick the water can down the road any further.
Great analogy.
Yeah, so.
And our combined, I hate to say how many years combined experience that we have here, but with Tom and Rob and I, it might be over 100 years combined experience. And-
Don't go that far.
Well, probably close. And it's a lot of it, this recommendation, we don't make it lightly.
Yeah.
I mean, if I've got 35 years, and each of us have got, but I meant the three of us, not you alone. My God.
And we've been working on it for a long time too, so it's thoroughly studied, it's justified, so thank you again for your hard work. We appreciate it.
It's definitely, I mean, it's well thought out, it's hard to come up here and request this, but it's important, and thank you very much for your support.
Thank you. All right,
Mayor-
yeah, go ahead.
Before we call for a vote, in a prior meeting, I brought up, just the pain of this, and I mentioned like a roundup opportunity or something that you've seen on bank statements or credit card statements. And while I think that will create an accounting nightmare for our staff, I would like to see if Jeremy can, it has nothing to do with this motion, but can we incorporate into that and create a water welfare fund or something where if somebody wants to round up from $67 to $70, can that go into a fund that we can somehow apply equitably and use it, as a fund of last resort or something? And I don't know how we do that, but because that's something you guys just brainstorm at a staff level and say it doesn't make sense. I know that during COVID there was individuals that were calling saying, "Hey, is there anybody that we can help out?" And I don't want to create an opportunity for people to say, well, I'm just not going to pay my water bill this month. But this is going to hurt some people. I think it will hurt some of our fixed income residents. And is there anything, maybe just see around, is there anything that's being done in our community, in our state, where there is excess pool of funds available for folks that just can't meet this increase?
If I may, Mayor?
Yes.
So when I got here, I had worked with Dennis, our customer service manager, and you may recall y'all passed there are two opportunities for people that are not able to pay their bills. One's in Martin County and one's in Palm Beach County, to apply for funds if they're not able to pay their bills. and that's a separate grant opportunity through the federal government. For what you're talking about, and we didn't forget about what you said, as you mentioned, it is an accounting conundrum, a challenge, but, you know, as my husband would say, I do like a challenge. And so, but it does require, and we've talked about it, and we've got it on our, you know, like in the parking lot, to talk it through. It's best to find someone to be able to administer it like a nonprofit. When I worked in another organization, there was a nonprofit that we had an agreement to administer funds, and it wasn't collected quite the same way, but we could set it up like that. And there were criteria that you had to meet, and so, you know, you want to have some type of criteria, and then have someone administer it and checks and balances so that there's not abuse, right?
Right.
But it's a great concept that we won't forget about.
Okay, well, great, as long as it's something that's out there, and this is a long project that we've got going, so if there's opportunity in the future
At
to
the
work that in.
manager's direction.
Thank you.
We will be continuing to work on that.
Great,
Yeah,
thank
we
you
can
so much.
work on it. Thank you.
Okay, can I get a motion?
Motion to approve.
I thought I did I not?
What?
Public comment? I thought I said that already. Yep. Oh, sorry, did I? It's okay. Carol, come on up.
Double check.
Harold Taylor, 13 Chapel Court. I think a couple of months ago, I mentioned a problem that Jackson, Mississippi has. They have probably the worst water system in the country. I take a magazine called Engineering News Record, and if I remember the article from a couple of weeks ago, 2/3 of the water that's produced in Jackson, Mississippi is lost to leakage. Their piping system's not being updated. So the government has put in a couple of $100 million to try to repair the leaks. Thank God, we're smart enough to realize you have to have a capital program and keep things up to date. Thank you kindly.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Okay, can I get a motion?
Motion to approve.
Second?
All in favor?
Aye.
All right, moving on, agenda item 17, resolution number 15-23, to adopt new stormwater utility fees.
Marjorie Craig, Utilities Director, and we have before you a request to increase the stormwater fees by 5%. And this proposed schedule of fees would result in a total annual increase of $4.09 for the base residential rate, which equates to about 34 cents per month on an average residential bill. And it's also based on an ERC basis. So as you probably know, stormwater rates are collected on your tax bill as a non-ad valorem cost. And we are definitely in need. I brought up how much pipelining that we did this past year. We did an equal amount, a little bit more last year, and we have a systematic, a programmatic approach to more pipelining, restoring swales, and then looking into what I'd like to do is get past some of that reactive installing and lining that stormwater pipe and putting in more bioswales, getting some more grants for those bioswales.
Thank you.
So, any questions?
Council?
No.
Nope.
None here.
Any public comment? Can I get a motion?
Motion to approve.
Second?
All in favor?
Aye.
Thank you. Agenda item 18, consider acceptance of Palm Beach County EMS grant funds.
Good evening, Mayor, Vice Mayor, Council. I think the mayor kind of stole my thunder. So what you have before you there in item number 18 is a request to have council approve the acceptance of the Palm Beach County Emergency Medical Services Grant in the amount of $19,266.95. We're also requesting the approval to move forward with the purchase of one Lucas device chest compression system in the amount of $19,937.44. By approving the purchase, you are approving the recognition of the grant revenues and the increase in appropriations in the fire department's budget and the amount of the grant. I have attached a copy of the grant, a copy of the quote, and a copy of the sole source letter. Any questions?
Thank you. Council?
As I say, this is kind of a no-brainer.
Yeah. All right, any public comment? Can I get a motion?
Motion to approve.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Thank you.
Thank you. Agenda item 19, consider approval of Terracon Services Second Amendment to their agreement.
Good evening, Mayor, Vice Mayor, Village Council. Staff is requesting consideration to extend the current contract we have for landscaping and mowing with Terracon Services. The initial term was 5 years. That concludes on September 30th. We have the opportunity to extend for another 5 years at the same terms and conditions and pricing. In addition to extending the contract for an additional 5 years, we are looking to add the Utilities Department and the Leisure Services Department to the existing contract. It will be up to the departments to budget for any additional services under the contract terms and conditions and the pricing. Just to mention, Terracon has been an outstanding partner for the village, very resourceful and agreeable to extend the contract for an additional 5 years at the current rates. So we've had fixed pricing since 2018. So it's staff's recommendation, based on the pricing and the performance by Terracon, to approve this second addendum.
Thank you. Council?
No comments from me. As I say, this is a no-brainer.
I do have one question.
I do.
Right now, those services are being provided by our staff, are they not?
80% of the landscaping is being performed by Terracon.
No, I mean for the areas that are being added are.
Correct.
Okay,
Correct.
so by adding them to cover those areas, that's going to free up some staff time. So what, if we're looking at productivity and where that time is going to be directed, where do you see the benefits to you and your staff by outsourcing this rather than keeping it insourced?
It's not my department, so I wouldn't answer to that, but I know the department heads have had that discussions with the manager.
Okay.
That was actually my question as well, is what is being utilized if we're
So,
adding?
I mean, as far as the Parks and Rec, we're adding, some small services, but, and this is a more detailed answer, but, our Parks and Rec staff will be working on Tequesta Park this coming year, and so they will be taking, we'll say, ownership of that, and so that's why it's kind of necessary to shift a little bit of that. I know Kenny still takes pride in Constitution Park and will still continue to provide that service, but they're, like cutting the tree trimming and things like that will be part of this service. So that's that part. I think the well sites, the water treatment plant, and Marjorie left, but I think our cell site out of the water plant was always Sprint. They were responsible for doing the cutting of that. Obviously, they came off of our tower, so now our staff's responsible for that. So we're looking for an alternative to our staff taking that up. So they weren't doing that.
Okay.
And in the well sites, I think we're, to be able to, provide that a better level of service cutting around those, I think is why we're doing this. So I have had a conversation with this. I think, it's minimal cost, as you can see from the contract. So, you always compare what our staff can do for the cost versus a contractor, and it's gonna be hard to beat Terracon in most cases, so.
No, that was really my question, which was, it's going to free up some of our staff. How are we redirecting their energies and efforts?
I mean, I think our water staff should be making water.
They should,
So,
they should.
so.
And the issue of Tequesta Park, I mean, that's a legitimate redirection of use, so, thanks.
Thank you.
Okay, any other council comments?
No, none.
All right, any public comment? Okay, do I need to wait for Councilmember Painter to come back for the motion?
I think we
Probably.
As long as you don't have a contested.
Okay.
As long as we're not 2-2.
Just want to make sure. Can I get a motion?
Motion to approve.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Thank you.
Thank you. All right, moving on, agenda item 20, approve setting the proposed max ad valorem millage rate for
So-
6.2900.
So by statute, we're required to set a max tax rate. You can always go down, but you cannot go up. So once we set this max tax rate, we will be stuck with that as the max. As the budget process went on, we have recommended a lowering the tax rate back to what it was in 2019, 6.290 per $1,000 assessment. The current tax rate is 6.6290. You guys have seen the presentation in the budget process. We have looked at, and you guys have seen this, 5-year projections. We feel good that we've met a lot of the strategic plan initiatives that we've tackled, minus a full-blown Remembrance Park. So our staff is recommending a lower tax rate. You guys have the ability to keep it at the same rate or keep it higher than the 6.29. So this tonight is about setting the max tax rate. And we do have a workshop on July 31st for the budget, so we'll plan accordingly with whatever your guys' decision is tonight. We also, with your motion tonight, will also be setting the public hearing dates as following: September 14th at 5:30 and September 21st at 5:30 for the final adoption of the millage rate and budget. So we'll be doing that in the motion as well.
Thank you, Jeremy. And to be clear, this is the lower rate that you suggested at the budget meeting.
That's right.
Correct. And just for consideration, I know, staff has continued to analyze it since our budget meeting to make sure there's still, this is still a recommendation, which it is. I think that when it comes to lowering the millage rate, we are in the best position that we can be with staff recommending it versus council demanding them, to figure out how we can lower the millage rate on behalf, for the residents, because that's something we desire. So this is the best position that staff is actually recommending it. I do trust the recommendation, and just for a little insight, during our budget session last year, we were talking about reducing it. We were looking into avenues to reduce it. It was not staff's recommendation, but we did, as a council, say we should revisit it this year, especially if, inflation's still high, fees are still going up, all that stuff. So I think it might be good to keep good on our word with that as well. Because as you know, we are increasing all our fees and everything else that homeowners pay, from insurance, any services, everything's going up. So I think we really should highly consider lowering this rate, especially if staff is recommending it.
I agree. In the end, I agree with that position, Mayor. We have voted this evening to increase garbage water and stormwater by almost $168. We have one more workshop left on the budget on July 31st. There's still some outstanding issues with the budget, some expenses that we don't have in. We heard a presentation this evening for our property and casualty. I too would like to see us be able to drop the millage to the proposed rate, and we can still do that. My preference this evening would be to keep it at the current rate of 6.629, because we've got one more bite of the apple on July 31st. There's a big discussion. We want to fund our priorities as a council, which was, this is not a budget discussion, I don't want to go down that path, but about supporting our fire, about Remembrance Park, and there's still some unopened, unanswered questions. So while I would love to see us drop it, I don't want to pigeonhole us and be stuck with the handcuffs on us of submitting this to the county or not greater rate of 6.29. So I would recommend, I'm in favor of keeping it at the current rate at this time, knowing that we can always drop it after we have the budget workshop.
Yeah, so I've thought long and hard about this. I've spoke with Jeremy and others, and not only council but staff, and I tend to agree with Mr. Sartori. We have to remember this. All this is the proposed maximum, right? So there's nothing to say that we won't ultimately go with the 6.29, given that we still have the workshop on July 31st. And there's still a few items that I think we need to internally figure out. I am, as of tonight, in favor of setting it at the higher 6.6290. And hopefully we do ultimately land at the 6.29, or possibly we still do land at the 6.290. But just to keep our options open, I guess I'm having a little trouble seeing, there's no harm in setting it at the higher, knowing that we can go down. Whereas if we set it at the lower, there's nowhere really to go from there if we change our mind. And I think that's why I ultimately have made that decision. And again, I've thought long and hard about this. Obviously, lowering taxes is awesome, and I know this is super important to our staff, and they've done an awesome job advising us on this. I just feel like we should keep our options open.
I concur with the other two gentlemen. I think that there are a number, again, not to get into a budget discussion, but there's a number of critical initiatives that I think we still need to address. Again, prior councils have made the mistake of lowering millage rates only to have to increase them in the future. Now, we do have some aces in our pocket if the building redevelopments on Jupiter Island are successful. But I would agree, right now, I think we need to maintain maximum flexibility. And I would agree to keep it at its current rate, and if it's possible to lower it when we get through our discussion on the other issues, we can still take that action. So I agree with the other two gentlemen.
Hi. Yeah, I'm still sitting on the same thing I was deciding last meeting, setting it at the max, and that we need to further our budget conversation to finalize those last few items that need to come back to us with more closer to exact numbers. I do like to make sure that our taxpayers' money is covering everything that they need, and that we don't need to go up and down, up and down, up and down. I do also know that the county, because Maria Marino sent out bragging letters that they are lowering their millage rate as well. So it's not that the bills aren't going to be changing. They are going to be making adjustments. I would feel more comfortable setting at the max and discussing at the budget meeting lowering it. That's the most comfortable I feel for tonight.
Okay, and I respectively disagree with everyone. I, of course, have heavily analyzed the budget and the projections and have talked to staff a lot, and I am confident in their recommendation at this time. I do think if you set it higher now, it's harder to bring it down, even in our future budget discussions. But so I'm in favor of setting it at the lower rate now. All right, any public comment? Can I get a motion?
Make a motion to set the millage rate maximum at its current level of 6.629.
Second.
Could you include in your motion also the setting of the dates as well, just so we make sure we memorialize that? Right.
Down at the bottom.
They're on.
Oh, well, we've got the, well,
September 14th at 5:30 PM.
Okay.
And then on September 21st.
And again on September 21st.
Yeah.
Yeah, okay. Yeah, I'll include that in the motion as well.
Second.
Okay, all in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
No?
Patrick.
Patrick. Okay, moving on, agenda item 21, consider approval of initiating process to hire a full-time staff to serve as a community development department.
So this item's before you, and I first wanted to say, Nilsa Zacharias, who's here, has been an awesome, representative for the village, as a consultant. And so this is not, it's been a hard, decision to come to. Obviously, NZ Consultants has sold to Chin Moore. Some price changes have occurred. I think, with the development that we've had with, throughout the village in the last several years, I think the workload is there. So in front of you, and we've had this discussion, staff is recommending that we are going to bring in a full-time staff to staff this department. In the past, the department's created by the council, and then, it's my job to fill that department. And so my recommendation is not gonna be to have a contract with NZ Consultants or Chin Moore. So we are gonna staff this. So in front of you, to help with the transition from full-time staff, from the consultant, would like to hire somebody now. We have budgeted in the upcoming budget, but to help with the transition, hopefully be able to post the job and get somebody in within, the next month or so. So that way there's some overlap between our current consultant, and the staff member. And so that's what the decision is tonight, is to try, because there will be some budget implications for this year, depending on, obviously depending on the qualifications, the person we get will depend on the budget number, but we'll bring that back to you as a budget amendment once we hire that staff. Come October 1, if we waited to then, we would hire it. We could do that, but this is about the budget amendment that would come between now and September 30th.
Thank you. Council, any comments, questions?
No, I think it's a very detailed job description, and you said it's a necessary step to do what serve the village best, so I'm in favor of this.
Yeah, I think Nilsa and Lance and her team have done an awesome job. They've been working with us forever. But, I have to trust staff on this one, and I do think there's a need for this position. So I'm in support of it.
Yeah, this is a tough one for me, because I think, as Patrick just said, Nilsa and her team have done an outstanding job for so many years, and they've got such embedded knowledge of the village, its history, where we've been, how we got to where we are, and I think what our expectations are for the future. I wish there was a way financially that it made sense for us to continue to employ her, and I would hope in the future that we might set aside some dollars, so if we need to bring her in, from time to time to assist.
We have that, sir.
Yeah, there would be flexibility to do that. So, having said that, though, I can't disagree with what's already been said about maybe moving forward with a hire. Again, my only concern here is I don't want to be in a situation where, and I know what you're saying, Jeremy, right now the activity level is there. Hate to be in a situation where we bring somebody in and then a few years it's not. But I guess, that's a risk we take. So I will support this.
I spoke to Nilsa personally, and she knows where I stand. It's hard, but it is what it is with the things that have happened and her selling her company, and it's a budget thing, it's a personalization thing. There used to be this position in-house, and then it was removed, and for me, that was when the village was very sleepy and quiet. I remember when I used to come up here years and years ago, I was like, where were we going? So knowing it's found, even Hope Sound is getting more noticed and busy, I think having it in-house is the smartest thing. I have asked Nilsa if she's gonna be around at least, so we can have conversations if we do get in a very complicated situation, help educate whoever new is coming in. I know we have great historians who have lots of great history of how the village has evolved and where it could be going. So I have a lot of comfort in keeping it in-house. It's unfortunate, but these are one of those things where we need to make a transition.
Okay, thank you. I agree with what's been said, and it's been a pleasure working with Nilsa and your team. I know you really are some of the first people I knew at the village when I got on the Planning and Zoning Board, so it's been a pleasure working with you. But I do agree with what's been said tonight. The only thing, and this kind of relates to what Councilmember D'Amber said, so kind of table this to consider for our next budget meeting, is I think there is in the job description that a planner would direct to this person. I don't know, due to the size of the village and like Councilmember D'Amber said, the busyness could fluctuate. We don't know what we're going to have coming in and what they're all going to be doing, but it might be excessive to also have a planner to be hired. That is budgeted, right? It's in the budget. So table it to budget talk, our next budget workshop. I kind of want to throw that out there for consideration. All right. Any other council comments?
Nope.
Any public comment?
Good evening, everyone. Pat Watkins, 167 River Drive. I just wanted to take the opportunity as a former council member and now resident to thank Nilsa publicly. She's been such an overwhelming asset to this village. She knows the ins and outs of everything here, and I know the developers work well with her. Just thank you, Nilsa, for years and years of work.
Thank you, Nilsa.
I know. And I'm very grateful. That was one of my best decisions.
Good job.
Yeah. Thank you,
Good
Nilsa.
job, Mrs. Watkins.
Yeah.
Thank you. Any other public comment? All right, can I get a motion?
Just clarification,
Yeah,
are we
absolutely.
voting to table or are we voting on the position?
We're voting the position. The item I brought up was so this position, it says that there's a planner that would report to them, so that would work under them. That is in the budget. I kind of wanted to revisit that. It's related, that's why I brought it up, but not voting on
Okay,
it tonight.
just want to make sure I misunderstood.
So where were we on the motion?
Get a motion?
So moved.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Okay, moving on, agenda item 22, the annual performance review of our village manager, Jeremy Allen. So this is always fun to publicly do someone's annual review, so I've gotten a bit used to it at this point. But this is the time we, get to review Jeremy's performance this past year. There's some criteria that is in the backup, so I hope you guys had some time to review that. And I'd like to start with just kind of the overall feedback for Jeremy from council, and then we can talk about any bonuses or anything of that nature that we'd like to consider. So I know Councilmember Sartori and Councilmember Painter, you're newer.
Yeah.
But you did know Jeremy beforehand too, so I don't know if you, I'm sure you have something to provide tonight.
Yeah, I will start. My professional relationship with Jeremy, started on April 13th when I was sworn in, and in that capacity, since that time, I look at these 5, you can call them performance expectations or KRAs, key result areas, and I can even look as recent as about 5 o'clock or about 4 o'clock this afternoon, when about 3 of these things came into play. I find Jeremy's creativity, his communications, his council relations, clearly his fiscal responsibility and leadership, all 5. But 3 of these things that happened today. Jeremy is available all the time. I respect his position. I respect his opinion. And this is my first review process here, so I'm not quite sure what we do, but I think he's meeting all of these performance expectations. Again, it's limited to a few months, but Jeremy, you're doing a great job, and I appreciate you and the guidance that you give to this staff and this leadership team.
Yeah. So I had the pleasure of knowing Jeremy personally before professionally. So I know him very well. I know the type of person he is. In fact, I'm not even so certain I would have even run for council if it weren't for Jeremy. So I think he does a fantastic job. Yesterday, was it yesterday? Did we meet yesterday?
Yes.
Okay. Yesterday, I got to see something pretty cool. It just happened to happen right after I was meeting with Jeremy to go over the agenda. And I don't know if this was something that Jeremy brought to staff or not, but we came into the council chambers here and they spun the wheel. What do you call the wheel?
Star spin.
The star spin. And it was, it's something so cool. And again, I don't know if this was Jeremy's idea or whose idea this was, but just to see the staff all in here and getting behind this because one of our awesome staff members did something really cool. It was just something really nice, and just to see staff and their interactions, and that all starts at the top. Regardless of whose idea that was, leadership starts at the top, and we all know that. So aside from that, like Rick said, April 13th, professionally, I've been able to work with him. This is my first time in this capacity as any local government position, so I came into this knowing very, very little. I mean, I in my day-to-day as a lawyer, I do deal with some of this stuff, but he has been educating me. Every time we meet, I learn something new, not just about what we do up here, but about Tequesta, our village. And, I think he does a fantastic job. And I just wish the guy could have lowered the taxes. That's my only... I'm just kidding. But no, I think you're doing an awesome job. I've never done one of these publicly, but that's what I have to say, and that's it.
Was the older person on this council who was around long before Jeremy ever got here. Former manager prior to Jeremy's tenure did some good things, but we also had a number of concerns and issues such as capital planning and some other things that a number of us had been desirous of and putting pressure to address those items. And with Jeremy's arrival in 2019, I mean, we started at that time working on the new recreation center, which obviously we got done, which was something that was near and dear to a lot of our hearts. But Jeremy's done, I think, an outstanding job in the time he's been here. And a lot of the deficiencies that we had prior to your arrival, I think, have been addressed. And I think the village is in a much better place for that. So you've done an outstanding job, and very happy you're here, and you're going to be continuing on, hopefully, for at least another 4 years, since we gave you the contract extension last year. But congratulations on a job well done.
You know you're my favorite. So let's see, let's start with you can make a better face when I approach your office, because when I come in, I usually have something, because I'm a very busy mom of 3 with 1,000 other things going on. So when I pop in unexpectedly, because I just have a concern from a resident, yeah, he's always welcoming, always doors open. I do want to say the improvements every year get better and better. Like Mr. DeAmber said, for me, there wasn't really any communication from our former manager. And that is one of the biggest reasons why I ran, because I have nothing to hide. I think everyone should be discussing everything, and the manager should absolutely be discussing things with all council and all residents. And the fact that we get group messaging, and if one of us requests a more detailed something for backup, it is most of the time sent to all of us, so we can all be prepared for the meeting. He's great at that. I think it's always getting better, and even big events in the village, I think, have improved. So when we have a house fire, all council was notified, just so when we get calls from residents, like what's going on, because that's something big, or the power being out, just that communication of keeping our council on one team, because we're a team of 5. I think that's very much appreciated. The only thing I request is you get a new phone, because every time you call, we have that backup. Maybe it's mine.
I don't think that's my phone.
I don't have that problem.
I know, I'm just picking on. So that's one of the things. We have horrible cell service in Tequesta, but we don't want more towers. So other than that, I think the communication is always improving. Maybe it's not 100% perfect, but it's absolutely improving, especially if you call and you can't answer. You usually get one of those auto texts, I'll call you back because he's in a meeting. For me, communication's a huge thing, is always being available. And also all the updates. We're amazing this year with the legislative updates. And again, keeping all of us on one page. I can't speak for any staff because I'm not staff. I haven't heard any complaints, which I used to hear complaints from the former manager. So I guess no news is good news in my opinion. So thank you. Keep improving, keep moving forward. That's it.
Thank you. So I 100% agree with everything that was said, and don't have much more to add. I mean, on all of the criteria for the performance expectations you excel at. I know last year, I think the only feedback I had was to maybe step it up a little bit in the community and public relations category, which you absolutely did this past year, not only in the village, but also with stakeholders in the county, any special districts, and even the state. So thank you, because you really excelled at that this year as well. So yeah, just full on agree with what everyone said, and we're lucky to have you, and you're never allowed to leave. So with that being said, I would suggest, I know per the contract, that he gets the same salary increase as the rest of the non-union employees, and then I want to suggest a bonus of $15,500, which is about an 8% bonus, and so I'll leave that to council for consideration.
I will consider that and make a motion on that note, if there's no other comment.
You know, well, last year, because Jeremy, you sent out the letter talking about salary. And obviously, there's differences depending on the size of various entities, which wasn't factored in. But I know last year what we did is we took the bonus and we said we'll pay half of it in bonus and half of it as an additional salary increase above and beyond the percentage that you were going to receive along with all the other employees. I'm open to doing something along those lines again. I think your performance has warranted that. So as far as the amount that the mayor suggested, I'm good with that. But I might suggest that maybe we take, you know, 6,000 or 7,000 if you're content with this. Take a portion of that and allocate it to salary, and then take the other portion and pay it out as bonus. Just a thought.
So 7,500 of the 15?
Yeah, maybe 7,500 as salary, in addition to the percentage increase, and then the balance as a bonus payment. Unless you'd prefer to have it all as a bonus payment, you can express your preference.
With the
Well,
intent,
first, what does council think, and then,
Well,
so the intent there is that if we put part of it towards salary, that will stick for
Yes.
further years?
That's what we did last year.
Oh, okay.
the year
okay.
before.
The year before, sorry.
Yeah.
I mean, assuming
It's been a long time.
Mr. Allen would like that, I'm in favor of that, and I think it's a good idea.
Where's that?
What is the percentage increase, is it, that we're discussing? Not if we were to allocate half the budget to salary, but what is that number for the non-union employees? Do we know that number?
Yeah, what's the, what are you projecting
The
for
percentage
the-
increase?
4%.
we were talking about 4, right? Yeah.
So I'll do the quick math, so,
It'd be about another 3.5, 3 3/4.
and the base salary now is at, 194,670, then if we add 7,750 to that, sorry, I have to use a calculator.
So the 4%.
So you're at 202,420, and then you'd have the, projected 4% on top of that.
And then the addition, the balance of
And then the balance of the other half of the
A
bonus.
little over 7,500.
Which, based on the median number that Jeremy had given us, which was about 229, that, you know, again, I know there's some differentiation based on the size of the municipality, but I think that keeps them in a very competitive position.
I'm agreeable to what Frank's recommendation is.
Agreed.
I mean, Jeremy, do you have a?
Yeah, it all
do you have a
assumes
Yeah,
that.
let's-
Hey,
if
I'm
we're in
super
agreeance,
grateful
once
you guys are talking about it. I mean, I think, you know, obviously, the preference would be what Frank proposed, but I'm thankful for whatever you guys give me, so I'm happy to be here. I mean, I love showing up to work every day. I think our staff is great. I mean, I couldn't be in a better situation personally and professionally. So, I mean, I prefer what Frank proposed, but I'm just happy that you guys are discussing it, so.
I'm in favor of it.
Vice Mayor, have you chimed in, or?
No.
You're doing the math still?
I'm thinking,
Okay,
I'm
no,
thinking
take-
long
Take your
term.
time, you're fine.
And I'm looking at the other rates of everyone else. So I am gonna be okay with what is being proposed if we split up the bonus and do half of it towards the salary. I understand that's a big jump, sort of, for our little village. However, if people understand, knowing what's happening in the other municipalities and the competitiveness, I think it's very important for our village to stay on track with the positive atmosphere and productivity that we've been on. So I wouldn't mind going with that. Staying competitive and keeping what we have is good and working.
And then just so is that 4% gonna change? Because we're voting on this based on the 4% increase. Is that subject to change? Or is it gonna be a 4% increase for non-union?
For all non-union?
Yeah.
The 4%, I mean, budget-wise, it's in the budget, I mean,
Okay.
4%. So, I mean, unless you guys change it, I mean, that's our recommended from the staff standpoint for all non-union.
Okay, so that won't change after we vote on this?
No.
Okay, just wanna make sure.
Not unless you guys change it, so.
Got it, yeah. So the 4% is locked in unless we change it during the budget.
Okay.
So the math would be, I guess,
a motion to increase Mr. Allen's salary by a flat amount of $7,750, which represents 50% of the proposed bonus initially, plus the 4%. And then the balance of that is a cash bonus of $7,750. So the new salary is the current salary plus 7,750, a bonus of 7,750, plus the 4% that we anticipate.
Well, the 4%.
The 4% is on the original.
Would be.
On the original.
Yeah,
The
and
original.
so that will
4%,
happen.
then add 7,750.
Yeah.
And it would be the 4% piece would be effective October 1st, when everybody else.
Okay.
And usually when you do these, it's, a part of the motion is just to clarify that that's before taxes.
Okay.
Yes.
Yeah,
Pre-tax.
this is a gross increase, yes.
Oh, I already did that math. That's-
Okay, so real quick, is there any public comment? No, okay.
And I would second that.
All right, all in favor?
Aye.
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 Did you get that, Lori, right, or whoever? Okay.
Man,
Thank you, appreciate you guys.
keep doing a great job, because this would be really awkward to give a negative review up here.
It would be, wouldn't it?
Yeah.
It makes
I
life a little
also-
easier.
I think I'm
than-
with
You or for me?
For the whole room.
It's unfortunate that we have to discuss your livelihood in a public arena. But that's,
If it keeps
you chose
you
that
entertained.
profession. Yeah, you chose that profession.
It's interesting, in many other states, when you get to personnel issues, they actually are able to go into a closed-door session.
Yeah.
Florida does not permit that.
Really?
so-
That's interesting.
Yep.
Thank you.
Right here.
Thank you, Jeremy.
Okay, final agenda item that we added is a request for village council to support Senate Bill 1430.
Yes, Marjorie Craig, Utilities Director, and Utilities Department request, we'd like to add the Village of Tequesta and Utilities Department in support of Senate Bill 1430, and that's the Water Systems PFAS Liability Protection Act, and that's a joint letter from the utility councils, that's our professional organizations, in support of a bill before the 118th Congress. And this particular bill, it limits the liability for water utilities for any PFAS that we treat. So if we were to find PFAS in our water, and it was to be treated through our water system, and say through our, let's just hypothetically, it went through our RO plant, and it was in our concentrate, and we had to do something to destroy that PFAS, that we would not be liable for that PFAS in the concentrate. We would not be liable for that PFAS for our customers. So it's the polluter pays rather than we're stuck with the liability of the PFAS itself. So, and then I put a little bit about what PFAS is. It's just a group of chemicals, and you guys have probably heard about it. We talked about it. We're doing some pre-screening testing. We'd like to support this bill that limits liability for the village.
Thank you. Any council comments or questions?
Marjorie, the articles that have talked about this have said that there's only 2 or 3 of the chemicals that have been so far identified and subject to testing, but they said there's a huge class of these chemicals out there. So, if we test for the couple that they've identified, that's great. But if there's a whole class of others that are out there that nobody's testing for, I guess I have faith that our water's good, but I have some concerns over the way they're approaching this. First of all, I agree with the fact we should support this, when you just said that. My concern is there a bigger problem than is really being addressed through this proposed regulation and testing scheme that they're putting in place? And should we be expanding our testing even beyond what they're saying we have to do to make sure that other chemicals aren't present in the water system that fall into this classification?
The answer to that question is, when the testing, yes, and we'll we will proceed as it's appropriate. So some of the tests just became available. The testing kits are very difficult to get. The testing centers, it's very expensive to get the testing done to begin with. The levels that we're talking about are in the parts per billion. To even sample that low is extremely difficult. So I want to assure you that you guys know I'm the chair-elect of the state section for AWWA. I'm on the utility councils, I attend the meetings, and the EPA conference calls. And when the time is right, and even before, we're being proactive on this.
No, I mean, I know they do say that the frequency or the issues seem to occur more frequently in the urban areas where there's industrialization and a lot of industrial activity. They're saying when you move outside those areas into the rural areas, it's much less. So I look at our area here where we are, and I take some comfort in that, where Tequesta is located. But there is a lot of it, there's shipping activity, there's a lot of chemicals used on the boats, whether they're pleasure craft, commercial craft. So then you say, well, is there reason for a broader concern than what they're alluding to right now? So, we can talk about this later, but I just wanted to throw that out there because
I could probably bore you. Your eyes would probably roll into the back of your head. It's something that we could talk about at length. There's risk. We have 2 sources of water, and we'll talk about it more as time goes on.
Just a short answer to that, we'll stay on top of whatever
we're on
wave
top
that
of
is
it.
coming. There's, Marjorie and I have talked about it at length,
We talk
today
about
it's
it weekly.
PFAS, tomorrow there'll be something else. We have always stayed ahead of the curve with water, we will continue to. We have good people making water, we have good people in good places, so we will always, our staff will always try to stay ahead of the curve.
So I don't doubt the capacity of our staff and our people and the work that you guys are doing at all. Obviously, there's issues with the broader environment, and we can't necessarily control them, so that's where the concern comes from.
Okay, thank you. Any other comments?
I have none.
Questions? All right, any public comment? Can I get a motion?
Motion to approve.
Second?
All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Okay, last thing, any other matters? Council? Do you have something to say?
Just want to say thank you
Absolutely.
so much to all of you for the beautiful words. Thank you, Matt, also. So it has been one of my biggest pleasure to serve the village for almost 13 years. So, and please count with us during the transition. We have our full cooperation. I did send an email already to Jeremy about that. And even after October 1st, my office is in Indiantown Road. I live in Jupiter, so whatever the village needs, the village will get it. And it has been a great pleasure to work with each Tequesta staff. So thank you.
Thank
for
you,
everything
Melissa.
you've done
Thank you
for
very
us.
much. Appreciate that.
You will be missed.
Don't be a stranger.
I have nothing.
Just one thing. I brought this up before, but I would like us to, the success of the village, obviously, and Jeremy's done a fantastic job, but it's not just dependent upon one person. And we've got people in leadership roles, whether it's Marjorie, Jeff, others. I would like the council to explore a bit more of a robust bonus program, not just for Jeremy's level, and I know we have something in place, but robust is not the word I would use to describe it. For our department heads who are in leadership roles, who play a very significant role in the success of the operations in the village. And I'm happy for the things we can do for Jeremy. I'd like to see if we can find a way to do a bit more for those people that are in those leadership roles that Jeremy is looking for to help contribute to the overall success of this village. So whether it's at the, again, I don't know that we can do anything about it this year, but I'd like us to at least have that on an agenda as we move forward for the future.
Council?
I agree with that, yeah.
Yeah, I think it's worth discussing.
Yeah.
In the public forum.
I'm fine discussing it.
Okay, can you add to our ongoing workshop list? Okay.
I need more details, but yeah. That's it. I don't.
You know anything? Okay,
Nope.
one quick item. So we, before the newest council members were on, we visited looking into, analyzing a need for a guest parking policy. There's no guest parking policy in our code right now. We did not proceed simply because, not because we didn't want to, we did not have the funds to do so this year. The analysis came back, I can't remember the cost, but it was a
heavy.
lot more than we were anticipating, and we just didn't want to have to, go to the unassigned reserve to get money for that. So, the history with that is there's been concern with the new development on Beach Road. So with Sea Glass and 300, we tried to ask them to put in guest parking. It's not per code, so that was a hard one to enforce. But they have 2 guest parking spots out front, and then otherwise it's secured parking that you can't access. Every time I'm at Coral Cove, there's people servicing Sea Glass Park at Coral Cove. I have heard the comments, well, it's Coral Cove, it's not our jurisdiction, that's the county's. But I do think it's not right for us to cause that problem either. And I do have concerns for 300 and 250, where are anyone servicing those buildings, where are they going to park? And then also with Paradise Park, that potential development, if there's they could not supply any guest parking, and that would be a huge problem. So it is a problem. We couldn't address it this year because we don't have the funds. I wanted to see if it's something council wanted to consider and have, I don't know if Jeremy will even have the time, but try to get another proposal or maybe edit the proposal and kind of value engineer it a little bit, because I think it was like, the Ferrari of what we needed. And look at it at a next budget workshop and see if it's something we want to consider again, and if we can get that number down, fit it in. I personally think it's a concern. We've had discussions a couple times, and we have had residents come with concerns about parking too, with future development. Like, it's not a problem now, but this is thinking ahead.
Yeah, I think it's a great idea to workshop it.
For July 31st?
Or
If,
late.
I don't know if you
Maybe
put
not that
something
one.
together, we can talk about it, review the old proposal, or maybe you can get one more,
Yeah,
or pare that one down.
We're gonna try to bring that proposal back up and see if we can't value engineer it and bring it down and see if we can, see what that'll come out to, less than the 70,000 or whatever it was before. So, just as a note though, and I think she's on the right path with leaning forward, but it won't have any effect on the 300 building or the 250 building.
Right.
So,
Yeah. We can still ask for it at 250. They still have to come to us for a site plan, so we could really try to enforce it. And I think, correct me if I'm wrong, I know originally Nilsa put together some good data and comparisons to other nearby municipalities, but when we went down the beach road design guidelines, I think that's when it really got pulled, because we were having pressure from an outside attorney and all that good stuff. And I think the thought was, if we have a actual good study and assessment on that, that would validate it and have more backup for us from like a legal standpoint. So that's kind of how we got to that point. Jeremy, is that accurate?
sounds right.
Okay.
Yeah,
Okay.
I don't mind talking about putting that in code and having a workshop. My frustration was just, why does everything have to have a study?
I don't disagree.
Because at a residential's, when my children start driving, it's in our code that everything has to have a spot. So when my kids start driving, I gotta provide a spot. So
Well, I think we can talk about that at the workshop then. We'll add this to the workshop agenda, the budget workshop. And then, maybe, Jeremy, you can refresh our memory with Keith and, I can't remember out the gate if he did support the ordinance as it was written with the guest parking or not. So we can just get a refresher on that too. Okay. All right, that's it. Can I get a motion to adjourn?
So moved. Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Aye. All right, I got a boogie. With a broken baby monitor.
On the dot.
Can we talk about getting a Target closer? Come on. On Tequesta.
Yeah.